Good evening, everyone. I'm going to ask everyone to take a seat. Good evening, everyone, once again. Before we get started, I want to bring in our district translator with a special announcement. Ms. Valbuena.
Thank you, President López. Buenas tardes. Habla Paula Valbuena. Si necesita servicios de interpretación al español, por favor, llame al 1805-324-7680 e ingrese el código de acceso 375-175-043 más la tecla numeral. Este es un número totalmente gratis. Nuevamente, llame al número de teléfono 1805-324-7680 e ingrese el código de acceso 375-175-043 más la tecla numeral. También puede acceder a estas instrucciones en nuestro sitio web en mcs4kids.com, dirigiéndose a la parte inferior de la página en Quick Links, haciendo clic en Board Agendas para ir a la agenda de esta noche, o si no, me pueden encontrar hacia la parte de atrás. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Valbuena. Welcome, everyone, to the Modesto City Schools 1478 regular board meeting of June 20th. This meeting is now called to order. In closed session, the board unanimously rejected claim number 604258. And now I will take roll call for attendance. Trustee Irvin. Trustee Maestas.
Present.
Trustee Marks.
Present.
Trustee Mejia. Will be joining
Present.
You'll be joining us through Teams. Trustee Wes.
Here.
Vice President Brown.
Present.
And President Lopez, present. Will everyone please stand for a moment of silence? And afterwards, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
With liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. This is the open session meeting for the Board of Trustees is being live streamed at the direction of the board. The live stream is available on the district's website, and the recording will be available for viewing the day after the board meeting. Modesto City Schools meetings have been adjusted to follow health and safety precautions until further notice. Modesto City Schools has provided an opportunity for the public to provide comment. It is outlined on our agenda. The public has been given an opportunity to call and leave a voicemail, send us a comment via email, or appear in person before the board. Any public comment received via email or voicemail prior to noon, the day of the board meeting will not be read out loud, but have been transcribed, and printed copies will be provided to each board member prior to the start of the board meeting and are available to the public in the back. The voice, email comments, and public comments will be attached to future board meeting minutes for approval. And this practice will continue until further notice. And for those people in the public today wishing to speak on an item that is not in the agenda, you must complete a public presentation request card and submit it to the board president prior to the period for public comment. If you need any assistance for a translator, please indicate so on the card. The cards can be found in the back. And after you're done filling them out, please hand them in the back where Ms. Antoinette is with us tonight. She will be able to deliver those to me. And then please do that right now, because once the public comment starts, we won't allow any other cards. And every speaker tonight will have 3 minutes for a total of 30 minutes for public comment. Thank you very much. And now We have our Superintendent Naguchi with her welcome and announcements.
There it is. Yay, I had to turn it off and turn it on. Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. It's great to see so many people coming out to our board meetings and also those that are tuning in via virtual. So thank you for coming out. Appreciate it. I have to say, I am very excited about the participation for summer school. We have a very large, vibrant summer school program. I want to thank everyone out there that is engaged in our summer school. Our teachers, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, nutrition services, they didn't stop. It's not their summer break because they continue to work. So I do thank them for that work. We will come back in September and do a status review on the summer programs, but I'm confident that you will be very proud of what you see. Additionally, I'm also very excited for all the work that is happening this summer. As we know, summertime is the time where we sort of close schools down and we have an opportunity to do any renovation or any improvements on our facilities. And with the help of our COVID dollars, the ESSER funding from this last year, along with our elementary bond project, and of course the support of the board, I want to go through a list of about 8 or 9 projects that we're working on right now because it's exciting. And I do want to thank the public for putting up with the noise and the traffic congestion and everything that comes about with large-scale renovations. And also I want to thank Mr. Durley and his team, Roger, back there. They're the masterminds with what's going on. So for those of you that enjoy track and field, we actually have 7 tracks that are being worked on this summer. All of our junior highs will come back in the fall, or actually by the end of fall, we'll have tracks at our junior highs. We're doing field renovations in our 3 stadiums. Fairview and Shackelford cafeteria and multi-purpose rooms are going to be finishing up in this next couple months, but a lot of work is going on this summer. Fremont, for those of you that drive past Fremont area, we've got a large-scale project there around parking and student drop-off in classrooms. We're finishing up the science lab at Hanshaw. Actually, we finished up the science lab at Hanshaw, but we're beginning the work now at La Loma. Again, that's that elementary bond at work. The STEM building, for those of you who live out in the Tuolumne neighborhood, is a huge change for that area and a big investment in the school with our STEM building and others. We're going to be beginning construction at El Vista. So for those of you that go up and down Oakdale, we're going to ask for your patience with the congestion there. And lastly, and this one is not the extensive list, but the bigger projects. Right now we are installing the charging stations at transportation. So for those of you that drove here today, actually we all did, for those of us that are here, we see buses everywhere. The reason why we have buses is because we needed to have the space to be able to do the charging stations. And the best part of this is the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District allocated $4.3 million for the cost of that whole project. So we thank them and their partnership for that. Lastly, we do have 6 sustainable outdoor learning environments where we're preparing the schools for these buildings that we will be placing in the fall, and that includes Tuolumne, Fremont, Beard, Wright, Roosevelt, and Downey. So for students that are very interested in sustainable energy, you're going to have an opportunity in those 6 schools to be able to learn firsthand and work with technology that you don't currently have at your school site. So I'm really looking forward to that. The last thing I want to say is, I want to welcome another member to our leadership team. We have Justin Woodbridge, who is out. If you could stand and just to be recognized. He is our interim principal at Enox High School. He has formerly been the principal at Fremont, so I'm sure you're excited about the work that you helped envision that is currently going on this summer. And has also been a vice principal at Grigori. So he's got a wealth of leadership experience. I'm confident that he is the person to lead Enox as the interim principal this year as we move forward and post for that position in the springtime. With that, I'm going to turn it over to President Lopez. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A lot of exciting things going on in this summer. I love passing by Shackelford every morning, seeing that beautiful cafeteria being installed. It's amazing. We're going to be moving on to our Board of Education members' reports. Do I have any reports for tonight? I have 3 so far. Maestas, you want to kick us off?
Sure. It's not hugely exciting, but I did want to report that last week I had the opportunity of being at the Modesto Sylvan Schools Infrastructure Finance Agency meeting, and we created a new CFD, which is I believe that's Community Finance District, for the Crossroads West, and Dwayne's in here, so I need to make sure I get this right. The Crossroads West community that's right outside, right across the street from the Riverbank Center on the west side of Oakdale. So those houses will be coming in. We'll expect those students to be going to Bayer, most likely. So we created that this last week, looking forward. So that was just a quick report. That's the last thing I did last week.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Trustee Irvin?
Yes, as well, I was at the same meeting as Trustee Maestas, so I won't go into detail because he did that. Also, I had the opportunity to attend the Juneteenth celebration over at Grisada Park. This year, Juneteenth, and is now a federal holiday, and no, we're here on a federal holiday, but that's another discussion. But Juneteenth is commemorates when the slaves in Texas found out that they were in fact free, and that the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed 2 years prior. So they actually been free for 2 years until General Granger rode into Texas to deliver the news formally. Also had a chance to attend the renaming of Mellis Park. It is now Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Park. They had the unveiling and renaming this past Saturday. Also got a chance to attend the Asian Festival over at Davis Park. Had a nice festival over there at Davis Park, attended by many members in the community, diverse members in our community. And that was my last week or so out in the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Marks?
Thank you. I love all your updates on the Juneteenth and giving us the history of it. It was great. I attended the Juneteenth at Grisada Park also this year on Saturday. That was really fun, and I manned a little short time at the booth for the Parents Leading Change. That used to be the Dr. Parker Committee, and so that was fun too. And running into people that I know in the park, so that was great. And you did a great job in your speeches. I could hear you a little bit where I was at, because I was manning the booth while you were at the microphone. So I was disappointed I didn't get to hear all that you said. I know it was very enthusiastic though, so that was good. And then I also attended the Clergy Council meeting, and Patty Munoz did the report for Modesto City Schools, and she did a great job. And it's just always a wonderful experience to spend time with the pastors in our community, and then also law enforcement, and get updates on what's happening in our community from the police chief, the sheriff's department, CHP, probation, the district attorney's office, and just kind of know what's happening. And I think it's helpful for our community to know that as well, and the pastors that are there. So I always appreciate being invited to those meetings. So that was my week, and I know we were just here 2 weeks ago, so we didn't have time to do as much as we'd like to, but it was good to be part of the community in the last few weeks.
Thank you very much. Do I see any more lights? Seeing none. We're going to be moving on to A7, which is our recognition, and today we have a pretty big one, and I'll send it over to Dr. Naguchi for this presentation.
All righty, I'm going to have Mr. Burton stand up here with me. So I appreciate Doug coming out today, and allowing me to recognize him and really talk about the great work that I've had the opportunity to experience with him as head of MTA. It is a great honor to have worked with Doug. Doug, for those of you who don't know, he has worked for this district for over 31 years, primarily as a second grade teacher. He has worked for 20 years as a second grade teacher, most of that time in year-round school. So for those of you that lived with year-round school, you understand the grind that takes, and that was the majority of his career. But for Doug, the last 10 years, he's been the president of one of our labor partners, our labor unions, and that is the Modesto's Teachers Association. And truly, it has been a wonderful experience for me to work with Doug. 4 years ago, I met Doug when I first was hired here, and he came into the office and he let me know that his union that he represented was very strong and was very active, and for the most part, all intents and purposes, I better mind my P's and Q's. And I understood that, and I looked across the table and I said, Doug, we're going into a completely different culture. You don't know what it looks like yet, but we're going to go into a different culture, and that is one of collaboration. Because as my experience in district office work has been working with folks, working with everybody, not just working with managers or administrators. And I told him, I'm a superintendent for the teachers, I'm a superintendent for CSEA, I'm a superintendent for the community. Ultimately, I'm a superintendent to my bosses who are all sitting around the table. But at the end of the day, I'm everybody's superintendent, not for management. And that was a different paradigm shift. Oftentimes you see the superintendent as the head of administration, and that's not my role. My role is to kind of balance a little bit of everybody and make sure that everyone's needs are met. Over the course of the 4 years, we've lived through a pandemic, and we truly would not have gotten through the pandemic in the shape that Modesto City did, and I am very proud of the work that we did in closing schools and opening schools and the mask wars and the vaccination uncertainty and all of that. We couldn't have done it if we didn't have a really strong collaboration. And there were many times we'd come to the table and we absolutely were on different sides of the table. But I always knew, and this is what helped me with stress and also with the team, I always knew our teams would come up with a solution. It may not be one side or it may not be the other, but it was always in service of kids, and it was always in service of the community and parents. So I want to say, thank you to your individual leadership, your collective leadership, because at the end of the day, it's not Mr. Burton, president of MTA, or the superintendent of the district. It really is about our teams and what our teams can do to be able to move our mission forward. So it is, when he told me this last year that he was going to be retiring, I kind of went into a panic for a minute or two and realized there was nothing to panic about because he set a strong foundation and a strong culture. And it's very different than what people traditionally see when they think about unions and management. Really try to break through that. I kind of associate it with a family. When a family argues and they disagree and they're going back and forth, it's not a really healthy family, right? But if you have a family that discusses and works together to be able to solve problems, then you have a strong family. And that's really what I believe MTA, the Teacher Association, along with CSEA, and this administration along with the board, because you certainly are a big part of that. And lastly, something I said back in my interview 4 years ago, I think in order to have an effective district, in order to have a truly outstanding district, it needs to come from the boardroom with a strong governance team that gets along, that's collaborative, that listens to each other and respects each other's opinions. So a strong governance team, and it needs to go all the way down to the classroom. And Doug represents that work in the classroom, because at the end of the day, it's the teacher. The teacher is the #1 factor in kids learning. And if we can't get along and work together in the interest of our students and ultimately our teachers, then we're not going to be the great district that I know Modesto City is. So with that, congratulations on your retirement. I do want to get a picture. I have a few things for you. And then I'm going to ask the president and the vice president, Brown, to come on down. We're going to take a picture. And this is for you for later. Thank you. See, we don't have Krista here to have this all staged just perfectly. I know you're watching us, Krista. Okay, we're going to go right back here.
With that, we'll be moving on to A8, which is approval of the consent agenda, and I do have a request to, first, to pull D9 from our agenda. So when we vote on the whole consent agenda, we will be voting everything except D9, and then I have we need to put aside D31, C31, D31, and vote on that separately, as there's, Vice President Brown, would you like to explain your absence from that? Should be. Yeah.
Testing? Yes, okay. I serve on the board of directors for the Boys and Girls Clubs, and so I'll step down for that item.
Okay, so if it's okay with the board, we'll start off with D31 and have Trustee Brown step out for a second. And I will be reminding, so in case I forget, every vote that we take tonight must be done in roll call, since we have Trustee Mejia on Teams, okay? So do I hear a motion to approve D31?
I move to approve D31.
Or do I hear a second?
I second.
Second by Maestas, and I'm gonna take a roll call. Trustee Maestas,
Yes. Yay. Forgot what I was going to
Trustee
say.
Irvin,
Aye.
Trustee Wes,
Aye.
Trustee Marks,
Aye.
and Trustee Mejia.
Aye.
Great, so motion passes unanimously with, oh, sorry. President Lopez, aye as well, so both passes unanimously. And Vice President Brown can come back in. One ascension. Okay, now do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as it is, excluding D9?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Perfect. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Seconded by Trustee Mejia. I will conduct roll call again. Trustee Maestas,
Aye.
Trustee Irvin,
Aye.
Vice President Brown,
Aye.
Trustee Marks,
Aye.
and Trustee Wes,
Aye.
Trustee Mejia.
Aye.
President Lopez, aye. Consent agenda passes unanimously. And so then we're moving on to order and discussion items. Do I hear a motion to approve the order and discussion items for tonight? Moved by Trustee West, seconded by
Aye.
Trustee Mejia. And I will conduct roll call again. Trustee Irvin,
Aye.
Trustee Maestas,
Aye.
Trustee Marks,
Aye.
Trustee Mejia,
Aye.
Trustee West,
Aye.
Vice President Brown,
Aye.
and President Lopez, aye. Motion carries unanimously. And so this takes us to our period for public comment. Thank you everyone for attending tonight's meeting and showing your interest in our schools. I have a total of 3 cards. Is that correct, Ms. Chambers? Great. So I'll call your name and please come to the podium. And again, each speaker has 3 minutes for a total of 30 minutes for public comment. And our first speaker tonight is Rebekah Valbuena.
Good afternoon. My name is Rebekah Valbuena, parent of 4 stakeholders. I represent the EL IEP under the umbrella We Are La Raza Parents Union. And I'm here again to be on record. I just want to say how bad the quality of service was and continues to be, mainly for my daughter with Downey, failing her to keep her constitutional rights safe, secure, and peaceful. Followed by the nutrition. All the kids have to be held upon every day, choosing from starving or eating and feeling sick the rest of the day. How are you guys passing the new LCAP funding when the quality of service for many of us remain poor? I also ask that Adolfo and the governing board please release all the charges against Noel Mendoza, who was wrongfully accused of lighting a firework at Downey. And do your investigations again. He is not the one that should be in front of a court. It's been too many months this family has been carrying a burden that is not theirs. My kids, 2 kids, have graduated from Downey, and this is the first time I hear of a firework to open public. I've heard of it before by them, and any other kid has gone away with it or just got suspended. So why is this incident any different? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Valbuena. I have, our next speaker is Beatrice DuRan. Welcome.
Hi. My name is Beatrice DuRan, and I'm actually the mother of the student from Downey High School who was sent to juvenile hall straight from school for allegedly detonating a firework in the boys' locker room. My student remained in custody for 2 weeks after meeting with Mr. Hoke, where he stated that my student wouldn't be expelled because of the lack of evidence, yet he is still being criminally charged with a crime that he didn't commit. He was released from juvenile hall and is awaiting court. And I am asking the board today to contact the district attorney and plead to have the charges against my son dismissed.
I'll take the rest of her minutes because obviously she's distraught. Adolfo, you talked to her. You told her, this mom who I brought before your governing board, that there was nothing that you could do because it was now in the hands of the DA. Her child should have never been in the hands of the DA. Her child went to school on a school bus. It's called Portal to Portal. Her child did not go home on that same school bus. Her child went home in the back of a cop car. So now you see why Debbie Barrera Martinez screams school to prison pipeline. It's right here. So Dr. O, if you're listening, nothing has changed. We have been coming before this governing board with violations. I mean, I just left the last one. Now we're in the front page. I can continue to uproot the corruption that this district is conducting continuously. And yet you sit here and you guys do what? Well, our children are being victimized. And these are her minutes because I still have my 3. I'm asking that each and every one of you, starting with you, Adolfo, you have the power to contact DA. You are the governing board's president. You are the reason why you represent the Hispanic population. South Side, right here, school to prison pipeline. She did her job. She sent her son to school mandated by law. Now you guys do yours and release him. This child wasn't the one. Mr. Sanchez lied. I'm going to go on record and I'll go on any oath. He lied. Sanchez needs to be removed. He ruined the children from Roosevelt. He's ruining the children at Downey. Put him with TK. Maybe he can ruin some mud pies. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Debbie Barrera. Debbie Martinez, sorry.
That's all right.
Welcome.
Debbie Martinez, We Are La Raza Parents Union, and I'll go under the umbrella of Advocate for Justice because I'm going to be giving them a call. I'm going to be calling California Legal Rule Associations. I'm calling the DA myself if I have to, but I shouldn't. You just got done saying you're community superintendent. I was here with 4 other ones and I chose you. And yet me and you can't get off on the same boat as you just recognized that union rep. I'm not going nowhere, Dr. Naguchi. And I'm not going to stop bringing families that are victimized either. Something needs to be done here. If you have a conscience, and if you sleep at night, picture your child in juvenile hall for 2 weeks unjustifiably. Let's sit down and talk again. Because I remember, Burbank, you called me, what's my position? 2.5 million now is my position in that one. How many lawsuits do I have to go through before you people actually do your job? Let me remind you. Two students at Downey that were victimized. One was raped, one committed suicide. So we have this person from the Modesto B saying, let the district do their professional job. Well, let's do it. We have 2 students from Downey, lawsuit. We have the 3rd grader from Sutter, lawsuit. We have the 1st grader that was victimized, 2.5 million, lawsuit. We have Gogori High School where we lost Andy, lawsuit. Brad? And now we have another one, juvenile hall, 2 weeks, lawsuit. Is that what you guys want? Continue to go to lawsuits because I'm capable. I'm very capable, but I'm tired and I'm exhausted. I want to start working with you people, but I can't because you got moms like that right there. English learners, our people. Adolfo, enough is enough. When are you guys going to step up? Dr. Wes, when they come out of Empire, Glick, they're classified as gang members when they hit Johansson. Why? I haven't talked to you since you got that seat. How many more are going to promise, and then when you get there, do what? What are you guys doing about securing our children's constitutional rights? That's a law. When did you guys become above that? Safe, secure, and peaceful. Yes, Dr. Naguchi, my time is almost up, but I'm not going nowhere. You will continue to hear me until you guys get it right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Although we cannot engage in the discussions or take any formal actions on items that are not on the agenda, we want to thank you for following the protocols and addressing the board and for taking the time to share your views with us this evening. Thank you very much. This moves us to B1, California Schools Employees Association Report. Is CSCA President available this evening? Seeing not, we move to B2, the approval of resolution number 22-23, 31, sorry, ordering an election of Modesto City Schools High Schools District Classroom Science Lab and Enhancement Measure. Mr. Durley.
Thank you, President Lopez. Good evening, trustees. On June 6th, the board heard a presentation around the potential high school bond measure and the benefits of a high school bond measure. And tonight, we respectfully recommend that the board approve Resolution 21/22-31 that will formally initiate the election on the November ballot for the consideration of a high school bond measure. The documents that were presented to you 2 weeks ago have been updated for your review tonight. And again, we respectfully ask for the board to approve this resolution.
Thank you very much. I will send it out to our public, see if there's any individuals wishing to speak on this item. Welcome. May you introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. My name is Tracy Traub. I'm the head football coach at Enox High School. Thank you for this measure. Here, I want to speak in support of this bond, specifically the support of the athletic fields, stadiums, pools, hard courts, physical education facilities, locker rooms, and accessory facilities. I promote to our players that you are a student athlete. Student first, athlete second, and education is important. But I feel like sometimes athletics gets pushed to the side. And so I just wanted to say today that I've coached in this district for 10 years. I've witnessed how sports are motivators for many students to stay on a path for success. I've worked with athletes who've received little or no support at home, and football was the one thing that kept them from dropping out. I currently have a player right now who is living on somebody's couch as he was homeless. And football is the one thing that's keeping him motivated, keeping him driving, keeping him going. I strongly support investing in our athletic programs as they will enhance the learning experience for many of our athletes. Installing a stadium at Enox campus would build pride and support in our student body, our athletes, our faculty, and our coaches. And creating pride in our schools and our athletics is a driver for many of our students who do not have drivers in their homes. Specifically, I support this bonds in regards to the stadium, as I am a football coach, and it would be nice to have one. I'm entering my 6th year with James Enox High School, and we are a program without a home field. In essence, all of our games are away games. We have to pack everything up, we have to load everything, and we show up as a guest everywhere we go. Quality facilities will support and add to our students' success in our schools, and I'm just here with many of my team, my coaches, my parents to say, hey, we strongly hope you will support and push forward this bond measure. Thank you for your time.
Welcome. Would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Gavin Prouch. I'm a student at Enox High School and a fellow football player. So I'm here today to talk about why I feel the need that we need a stadium. So first off, the reason I feel that we need a stadium is because we had to travel for some of our home games, and it will help some of the It will help not only Enox, but it will also help schools closer to us that do not also have stadiums. Second of all, I feel that if we do have a home stadium, it would bring more school spirit, pride, and not only that, it would drive students to get better grades so they can continue to play football on their home field. Thank you for listening for me today and hearing what I have to say to make Enox a better place.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Gavin was a little nervous. Can I finish up for him, though? He wanted you to see, forgot to mention, could all the football players and their parents stand? And the coaches. So they were supposed to have practice tonight, but practice was postponed so that they could be here with you. Oh, wow, there's a lot of you. I didn't realize there were so many. I have 2 statements that I'd like to read from some local athletic leaders, and then I also have a statement. Is that okay?
You have 3 minutes. Yes.
For their statements as well. I will start with my own, okay? So I'm Shelly Akiona. I'm an MJC business professor. I'm also a local pastor and a resident here for 30 years. My primary subject is business law, so I'm not in the athletics department. I'm here to speak in support of the bond measure with a focus on building multi-purpose stadiums at all Modesto high schools. Of course, Enox being first. They're a sweet spot in my heart. As an MJC professor, I serve high school graduates from all Modesto City schools who cannot or choose not to enroll into a 4-year university or a trade school. Not all, but a large majority of Modesto City Schools graduates attend MJC and are from underrepresented and disproportionately impacted groups. Many are athletes. Many come to MJC to continue their education and pursue their athletic careers, and not necessarily in that order. All right, so athletics is a key driver. As a professor, I'm speaking to students' educational success that I see at the community college level, especially with our DI student groups. I have students that are golfers, soccer players. They run track and field, basketball, tennis, baseball, and football. They are in my classrooms and have been for years. Many are athletically brilliant, and they use their physicality and their knowledge of their game to drive them academically. Many of those students, their academic grit is really what unlocks their potential as being successful, and often that starts on a field or in a pool or in a gym. I want to give kudos to coaches. The positive impact coaches make on student success cannot be minimized. Coaches are often faculty and community volunteers who give up hours for weeks and months to develop character in our young students. They don't do it for the money. You know what your coaches make, right? They definitely do it out of love, okay? And your town loves sports. We love sports. We don't want to just look to Oakdale. We don't want to just look to Turlock. There is passion and grit for sports right here in the community. And I am hoping that we will do more with our stadiums through our schools that don't have them. And let's get out there and cheer. Who doesn't want to be under Friday night lights cheering these kids on? They are the future of our city. So thank you very much. I do have.
If you'd like someone to read them for you.
These are my colleagues, and they asked that I would read it. One is the athletic director from Stanislaus State, and one is the head football coach at Modesto Junior College. They're short.
Unfortunately, due to time, we had to have a request that you can give it to us, and we'll take note of that as well. We had to be fair to all the speakers.
Hi, my name is Donna Goslin, and I am on the Athletic Booster Board, serving as public relations. Just 5 quick key points for Enox to support this bond. We are really struggling with parent involvement and support, and a stadium would really drive the parents to more support for the kids. Having something local, very close to us, would be a great service to our community as well. The closest stadium right now is Johansson, which is kind of a ways away from our community, and it does put kids and parents in a hardship to get to the games. The kids that are playing sports, whichever sports that it is, they put a lot of time and effort into playing, and then to get on a bus or have your parents take you kind of defeats some of that drive and spirit that is needed in order to be successful. The one point I also want to make is that it's athletics and grades go really hand in hand. I know from my own experience that I'm not a parent, I'm a grandparent. My grandson works twice as hard on his grades because he wants to play football. And he does whatever it takes to get that. And that recognition from people coming to your home stadium, from whatever, scouts, whatever it is, just always puts that boost and gives them the more effort. It would also bring a revenue stream back into Enox High School that could support more community structures, events, whatever it is. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
So, this message is from Rusty Stivers, the head coach at Modesto Junior College. He believes that athletic programs are at the forefront of being the top minority transfer programs in our country. They increase graduation and transfer rate or underrepresent underrepresented students in the Stanislaus County. High numbers of students from disproportionate groups participate in the athletics program in MJC, in the MCS actually, my bad. And athletic programs are specialized programs on campus that help increase student success. There are not enough fields for MCS athletic programs to participate on. Also, top-rate facilities should be the goal of all programs representing student success. That's it.
Thank you very much. Welcome. If you can please introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Aiden Mohammed. I go to Enoch's High. This letter is from Dr. Milton Richards. He was the former athletic director at Simon Fraser, Stan State, Kansas State, and the state at Albany, and a 2-decade resident of the Central Valley. I believe the positive impact athletics has on a school system and the community, and the need for an additional stadium. Watching young people grow and develop mentally and physically through athletics was a highlight of my career. My understanding is there are only 3 stadiums for the 8 high school sports program in the Modesto school system. Athletic facilities, especially a stadium, are a key component of a successful athletic program. I am very excited that this Modesto School District is considering building a new stadium. Not only would a new stadium enhance the interscholastic experience of Modesto students, it would have immediate positive impact on the city of Modesto. A multi-purpose stadium will provide youth sports in addition to district sports will not only improve commencements, concerts, and other school and community events. I enthusiastically support this program and will gladly volunteer to assist the district in making this project a reality. Please contact me should any additional information.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other members of the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'll turn it over to our board members. Anyone have any questions or comments? Trustee Wes.
I just want to thank all of the, especially the students that are here today. It's hard, I know, sometimes to get up and speak. We can be kind of intimidating up here, but we're for you and we back you, and you all did a great job. So thank you for taking your time tonight and for giving up your practice so that you can be here and speak about something that you're so passionate about.
Thank you. Trustee Marks.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts and ideas on how we can spend this money. And tonight, I would love it if you guys would sign some sheets so we can get in contact with you, because we have to get the voters to approve this. So it's not free money, but it does take some time to get it, and people are going to have to pay for it in their taxes. So in order to do that, it has to go on a ballot, and it has to be voted on in November. So if you guys are willing to also help out in the fall, I know that's when you have football practice, but maybe an hour on a Saturday or something, you could walk a little part of a precinct, hand out some flyers. We can't actually spend any school money on it, but we know that the public has to support this. And I know Trustee Brown's very aware of this because we passed an elementary bond not too long ago, and that's where we're spending all this money that you heard about in the beginning of this meeting on our schools. So I look forward to finding out how well we can do this new bond. And just to give you a little history, I know when we passed the bond in 2001, I think it was, for Enoch's and Grigori to build those schools. At the time, they weren't named yet. That was a subsequent meeting, but it took us a while to get to that point. But we decided that we couldn't do a stadium and a pool at both schools, so we chose to put a pool at Enoch's, which is really interesting that you're all here asking for a stadium now. And then we did the stadium at Grigori. So the pool took a lot longer than we thought because the costs went up about $20 million because they were using all of the funds for cement and steel to build for the China Olympics, which was a decade or two later, but they were already buying it, so it made our school costs go up a lot that year, or those years, and so we weren't able to put all the facilities we wanted to put in. So I'm hoping that now we can. It would be so awesome to see this bond pass, and if you guys are as enthusiastic as you are tonight in the fall, it'll help us get this passed, and hopefully we'll have that, we'll be able to move forward with some renovations and these new classrooms and do science labs and a lot of the other things that are listed on this bond. So I was a little reluctant last time because I know there's conflict. There's going to be 3 bonds possibly on this ballot. A tax for a 1% tax by the city, also a tax by the state to do facilities bonds, which would actually help us in the long run because then it would cost us half of this, and then this bond. So, but I believe that it's good because if we can get 55% of the voters to say yes, then we can pass this bond and we'll be able to have that money available in the fall. So I'm looking forward to that. But thank you so much for coming out and sharing your thoughts and ideas and reading for others. I appreciate that too, so we could hear their thoughts. And I just think it's great to see the support for this. Just hope you guys are here in the fall.
Thank you very much. Vice President Brown?
So I think everybody knows that I get excited when we talk about bonds. Just because I know what they do for the students and for our communities and the opportunities that they open. When we spend bond money in our community, that money goes back and circulates through the community and boosts every business that anyone who's working here on our facilities happens to walk into. And, the prospect of doing for our high schools what we have seen that we've been able to do for our elementary and middle schools really gives me the boost that I need to work my tail off to make sure that we can make a bond pass. And I appreciate those of you that have come in support of our measure and the fact that you're supporting us in making this important decision tonight so that we can get this measure on the ballot and we can pass a bond and we can do great things at every one of our high schools. So thank you for your support, and I'm looking forward to hopefully putting forward the measure tonight with my stamp of approval.
Thank you very much. Is there any other last comments? If not, I'd like to thank everyone that came out and spoke on this issue. It's great to see community come out and speak to us. And so now I'm gonna ask for the motion, even though I think I know who's gonna motion, but I'll do protocol and I'll ask for the approval. I hear a motion for the approval resolution number 2122-31, ordering the election of Modesto City's High School District Classroom and Science Lab Enhancement Measure.
I would like to loudly make that motion.
Motion by Vice President Brown. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Trustee Irvin. Ooh. And Trustee Mejia. And so I will make a roll call. Trustee Irvin.
Aye.
Trustee Maestas.
Aye.
Trustee Marks.
Aye.
Trustee Mejia.
Aye.
Trustee Wes.
Aye.
Vice President Brown.
Aye.
President Lopez. Aye. Hearing that, motion passes unanimously. And that takes us to B3, report on equity audits. Mr. Herbst and Ms. Ferris.
Yeah, Fallon Ferris, our new equity and intervention specialist. Actually, I say new. She's really not too new anymore, but she's going to do the presentation.
Right. Good evening, Board President Lopez, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Naguchi, and Cabinet members. My name is Fallon Ferris, Equity and Intervention Specialist for Modesto City Schools. Tonight I will be presenting on our 2022 equity audits. The purpose of this presentation is to define and explain the purpose of completing an equity audit, explain the process the district engaged in while conducting equity audits, review equity audit data, key findings, and identified action steps, and then allow some time for questions. As we all know, equity is embedded in practically all of our Modesto City Schools goals. The one goal that we defined most aligns with equity audits would be goal number 1, increasing academic achievement and ensuring equitable access to enable all students to attain college and career readiness. Previously board approved is our Equity Task Force recommendations. Recommendation number 6 will be our focus and alignment of today's presentation, which is around conducting equity audits. Equity audits are a leadership tool used to collect the data that informs practices and removes programmatic barriers that impede full participation, access, and opportunity for all students to receive an equitable and excellent education. The purpose of these equity audits are to pinpoint and address right at the source of the achievement and disciplinary gaps. Without a comprehensive audit, many districts or schools will truly only be guessing at why these gaps exist, instead of using data and relevant educational partners' input to inform these decisions. So we took a 5-step equity audit approach at the district, and our step 1 was to pool data based on student groups over a 3-year span of time. Step 2 was to form a district equity audit team. Step 3 was to gather input from administrators and certificated staff. Step 4 was to gather input from parents and students. And step 5 was to create action items that will help guide the equity work for the 22-23 school year. And I'd like to take a moment and thank everyone who participated in the equity audits process, including our staff, teachers, parents, and students. So before I get started, I want to preface that throughout this presentation, I will be stating that student groups are either overrepresented or underrepresented. We have utilized the federal guidelines of overrepresented being 3% or higher and underrepresented being 3% or lower compared to the baseline data. So first we will dive into our gifted and talented education, our K-6 GATE program. This first slide will show GATE demographics compared from 2020 to 2021. And as you read the charts from left to right, on the left you will find the breakdown of GATE students that attended and were enrolled in a GATE classroom. To the right of the enrollment percentage, you will find the percent change over the years from 2020 to 2021. When you look at the right chart, this will be the most current of 2021 breakdown of our K-6 student demographics. Going back to our guidelines of that 3% or more being overrepresented and 3% or less being underrepresented, we will dive into the data here as an example. So in our GATE programs, as you can see, in 2021, we have about 32.4% Hispanic or Latino students. That compares to the entire K-6 student population, or student demographics, of about 71% Hispanic or Latino students. This is a gap of about a little less than 30% or 40%. And then when looking at our white student population within GATE, we have about 20.4% for the 2021 school year. And for the students K-6 demographic, we have about a 14.3%. So looking over this data made us want to dig a bit deeper. Therefore, we looked into students who were GATE eligible, but decided to opt out of the GATE learning centers at Martone, Lakewood, and Sonoma. So this slide will show the numbers of those students who opted out of the GATE program for the 2021-2022 school year. And these are students that had tested into GATE, but once again, they decided to opt out of the program. To walk you through the slide from left to right, on the left, you will find the ethnicity breakdown of the 64 students who opted out of the GATE program. In the middle, you will see 7 of the 64 students were English learners. 47 of the 64 students came from low socioeconomic households. On the far right, we have a breakdown of what school sites the students who opted out decided to remain at. And then one additional thing we identified was if all 39 Hispanic or Latino students that decided to opt out of the program were in the GATE program this year, the percentage of Hispanic or Latino students within the GATE program would jump from 32% to over 54%. So all of this data and information was given to our district equity audit team, our administrators, and certificated staff. We then gathered some of the reasons behind why these barriers may exist for students that decided to opt out of the GATE program. And then we also reached out and did cold calls to parents and students to further identify barriers they had for their child to participate in the GATE programming. What you will see on the next slide is a summation of our key findings from both district, admin, certificated staff, and our parents and students. Our key findings were that Hispanic and socially economically disadvantaged students are underrepresented in GATE programming. Our white students were overrepresented in GATE programming. Several student groups by race, ethnicity, English language learner, socioeconomically disadvantaged, opt not to attend learning centers off their additional neighborhood school site. And then lastly, that transportation was the #1 reason for opting out by parents. That could come from a number of reasons, but a couple that we got consistently on cold calls were that when there were multiple siblings at a school site and one child got into GATE, some parents indicated they were not comfortable with their child being separated from their sibling. And then another common reason was students did not want to be transported from their neighborhood school site and friends. So once our key findings were finalized, we got back together with our district equity audits team and finalized the recommended action items. The team came up with 2 action items that we will engage in the next school year. The first is to create a GATE task force to evaluate current program eligibility and address supports for students who do not attend a GATE site. And the second was to provide additional outreach to student groups regarding what GATE eligibility means and the benefits of GATE programming. This format of collecting the data, sharing the data with relevant contributors, obtaining feedback, summarizing key findings, and gathering recommended action steps will be the same format you will see for the remainder of this presentation as we dive into AP, IB, CTE, and suspension rates data. Now on to AP. As you can see on the slide, we have the makeup of AP classes district-wide from 2019 to 2021. I will give you a quick moment to review the data. And on to our key findings from the data, we noted that Hispanic or Latino, Asian, and socially economically disadvantaged student groups were underrepresented in our AP classes district-wide. That white students were overrepresented in AP classes. And from our cold calls and surveys on campuses, we found out that some students that had interest in AP classes had a perception that staff did not support their enrollment in AP classes. And also that many students that had a 4.0 did not want to enroll in AP courses and lose their good grades, which many of us know is not accurate due to the possibility with AP courses and having a weighted grade of up to 5.0. Our recommended action items for this portion was the first is to develop 6-year plans for students and parents, to have counselor and staff professional development around AP classes and the benefits for all students, increased marketing of AP class benefits to elementary and junior high students, to create a more robust 8th grade honors night to promote AP courses in high school enrollment, and lastly, to explore additional dual enrollment opportunities. Now on to IB. I will also give you a moment to look at this data. You'll see the numbers are a little bit higher in comparison to the GATE and AP numbers that we've previously been looking at. And when speaking with Modesto City Schools IB coordinator and administration at Modesto High, they stated that their success in diversifying their IB classes was due to the increased collaboration between IB and their AVID programming. AVID students now, compared to years ago, have to enroll in at least one IB course. Our key findings here were white and socioeconomically disadvantaged students were underrepresented in our IB courses. Asian students were overrepresented in IB classes. And once again, when speaking with students either with cold calls or on campus, we found out that many students felt they did not fit the IB student mold and it wasn't for students like them. Or some students wanted to try AP classes, but not IB just yet. So our recommended action items here are going to be evaluating implementation of primary years program, which is PYP, and middle years program, which is MYP. To do this, we would put a representative team together to learn from other districts and conferences and identify a rollout plan. PYP and MYP would provide a continuum of IB at the elementary and junior high levels for students interested in taking these advanced courses. Our second recommendation was to increase marketing around how all students can participate in IB courses. Now we will look into CTE, and I'll give you a moment to look over this data. So you'll notice on CTE enrollment demographics, we don't see those under and over representation swings on any of our identified student groups compared to the ones that we'd previously seen. So then some of our key findings within CTE were that almost half of high school students enrolled in a CTE course, and that some offerings the students wanted in CTE pathways were not available at their identified school site. For example, when we were serving on campus, we had a multitude of Davis High School students mention they had interest in Enox High School's forensic science program. So our recommended action items here were, first and foremost, we want to continue to increase the marketing of CTE, primarily focusing on our external feeder schools that may not be as aware of what CTE classes are and the benefits. We also want to change the narrative around CTE classes only being for students not going to college. We also want alignment plans around internal feeder schools. An example may be Roosevelt Junior High having a fire science elective that naturally feeds into the fire science program at Davis. Marketing inter-district transfer availability. Continuation of district-wide CTE nights pre-high school. And then lastly, creating a 4 to 6 year plan for student and parent awareness. This is all we will have tonight on CTE programming because Ms. Barkas will have a future board presentation close to the beginning of the school year. The last portion of data we will be diving into today is suspension rates data. What's different about suspension rates is when you see the 1.1% as the rate for Hispanic or Latino elementary students for the 2021 school year. It means that about 1 out of every 100 Hispanic or Latino students received at least 1 day of suspension for the 2021 school year. As you can see, we stay below 4.7% for a majority of our student groups within this elementary demographics data. We do not see a huge swing in these rates compared to one another, and that is actually what we would like to see naturally occur across the board, that there's no big differences comparatively between the various student groups. So junior high suspensions will also have a 3-year comparison, and I'll give you a moment to review this data. The suspension rates swing here from about 6 to 16% for the 2021 school year. And it is important to note that we have seen a reduction of our Black and African American students since 2019 suspensions, but they are still suspended at a higher rate compared to their counterparts. High school suspensions are similar to junior high numbers, where we see a range from 3.2% to 12% for the 2021 school year. Just like junior high numbers, we note the reduction in suspensions for our Black and African American students, but that once again, they are still suspended at a higher rate compared to their other student groups. Some of the key findings around suspension rates were elementary data does not have any significant disparities. 7 through 12, Hispanic or Latino students, Black or African American, intentionally left blank, and socioeconomically disadvantaged student groups are overrepresented in suspension rates. And then also in my conversation with students and parents, the overwhelming conclusion was many parents and students knew what they or their child did was wrong, and they believed that they got fair treatment. The last point is, many parents did state that they wish there was a greater explanation as to what the child did wrong and why it was wrong, so the student could learn how to better handle similar situations in the future. Our recommended action items are 7 through 12 implementation and expansion of restorative and trauma-informed practices alongside equity trainings, which all go along with Dr. Okonafua's recommendation. We also know that students are more successful when they're connected. So we'd like to see the expansion of opportunities for students to connect with teachers and staff outside of the classroom. For example, with enrichment opportunities, RISE, clubs, sports, and more. We'd like to look into analyzing eligibility for sports and extracurricular activities to ensure all students can be engaged in these activities and still maintain a high standard of academics and school behavior. And lastly, we'd like continued focus on full implementation of culturally responsive PBIS. So our next steps will be to gather input from the Board of Trustees, to begin implementation of actions proposed by our district equity audits team, and lastly, to monitor successes and challenges and continue our reports to the Board of Education. Thank you for your time, and now I'd like to open for questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Harris. A lot of information, a lot of facts, and a lot of eye-opening facts as well. So I'm gonna take it out to the public first and see if there's any questions or comments.
Comments, concerns, complaints. Thank you. You did a tremendous job. You did awesome. How can community collect this data? Very good stuff. Anyhow, let me go from the beginning then, because I kind of wrote as she presented. So the first one would be under the Equity Task Force recommendation. Questions would be under number 4, where you're saying that you're going to improve communication with parents of color. How is that going to be done? That's one. Because MAIDI does not see what we see when it comes to communication. And I'm talking about community because that's who I stand and represent. I'm the voice for the parents. I'm the community. And so I'd like to see how Debbie Martinez can step aside and let you guys implement and improve communication so that we won't have to go into lawsuits, because what MAIDI does is nothing compared to what all of this is really about. So we need to peel the layer of the onion one more time and really get to the root of all of this. That she very, very, very good presented. So that's what the question is how is that going to be improved when you got a mom that just cried her son was in juvenile for 2 weeks? Sanchez did nothing but lied. So how is that going to be improved as far as communication? How? Remove the corrupt is what I say. The next one is the process to conduct equity audit. Gather input from parents. How do we get that data from what you gathered? All that input, where is it? We'd like to see what parents actually had to say. How was that registered? We'd like data on all this information. The next one is develop. Who's going to develop? How many parents are going to be involved in this one without school parents double dipping so that they too have a stronger voice than community parents? We'd like to see that reversed. We'd like to see more community parents arise and not school parents. The next one is a hard one. Put a representative team together to learn what team. I mean, I'd like to be part of that team. Let me go on record. I haven't been on a team since Pam was here 4 years ago. And you know what's sad, Dr. Naguchi, is I've been sitting back there and I've been watching you on that phone. And Brad, you know, maybe you guys should put your devices away like our children have to and pay attention. Because I'd like to be on some of these committees under what you guys are doing here.
Thank you very much, Debbie.
Thank you.
Is there any other comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll open it up to our board members, and I already have a list. I'll start with Vice President Brown.
Really appreciate the detail that you presented in this presentation. You helped us understand how this audit's working and how effectively you are working with the information that you're finding. Now, I'm curious historically to find out if the disparity that was not found in elementary suspensions has always been that way, or if we've made improvement there and can hope that the kids who are now in the K-6 realm are going to move into our junior high schools with some different training and perhaps affect the suspension rates going forward. So can anyone answer for me if we have seen improvement in elementary school suspensions?
Yes, we have. Across the board, we've seen a reduction in suspensions, generally speaking, but specifically elementary has been the quickest to reduce. I would say it's been a relatively new phenomenon to where we don't see any big swings, as Ms. Ferris pointed out.
So in the past, were our black students suspended greater in elementary school?
At a higher rate than they were over the course of the last 3 years, yes.
Okay, so that to me speaks to a lot of promise with what we're doing effectively in the elementary schools now that should carry forward with those same students as they move into middle school and then eventually into high school. So great work at that. And glad that the data is showing us that there is hope at what we're doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Irvin.
Okay, and just to kind of touch back on the suspension. So, you know, given I was kind of intricately entwined in this some years ago, I was at the district. So I just want to know, in terms of the presentation, wonderful presentation, Ms. Ferris. Glad to see the data. But I want to make sure the pathway that we're on is not one, because some of the research that has come out about suspensions and things like that and how districts have dealt with them, you know, where they had high numbers at first and they got to low numbers in certain grades because of they increased their tolerance levels. And so I want to make sure that that's not the case here, that we're actually providing the interventions and the resources and the things that we can say, you know, we can pinpoint it and say, you know, it's this trauma-informed strategy, or it's this alternative to suspension that we've been using, or some of those things, whether, you know, whether they're coming to say, well, we got a higher tolerance level now, so, you know, that's how come our rates are doing. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that some of the research has shown that, you know, strategies like that have been deployed in other districts that had high suspension rates, and particularly with African Americans, is that they just kind of increased their tolerance level. So with that being said, is there a way to kind of get to where we can kind of pinpoint to a certain degree? It says that, you know, these are the strategies we attributed these decreases based on these, you know, PBIS strategies, or, you know, trauma-informed strategies and things like that.
I believe it's a combination of professional development. I believe it's a combination of effective PBIS, which is really a tiered system of support. You mentioned tolerance. I would say that we have inserted over the years a slew of interventions that did not exist in years past, and I think that has been the reason for the decline.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Herbst. And then another thing in terms of the opt-out of the GATE program, especially amongst the Latino community. I'm saying, what are we going to do to address parents opting out like that? Because to me, that's a high number opting out of a program that's designed to take students and to take their performance levels to the next level, and it's like, oh man, they're opting out, and so what are we gonna do to address that? I know there's transportation, there's things, but I know there's things that we can do to mitigate that from increasing, because usually that's what happens. They begin to increase because everybody's looking around. Are you gonna take that gate? No, I'm not gonna take it, It begins to get around amongst the parents, talk amongst themselves. No, I'm not sending my child across town,
Right.
Go ahead.
So, well, with the key findings, we did have the recommended action items of creating the GATE task force that will be looking into that and kind of diving into more data of why the parents did opt out and ways that we as the district can fix that and potentially, I don't want to say add to our current GATE program, but at least increase and make sure that we are having proper representation across the board.
Right, and hopefully we look at the marketing of that as a process as well. And then my last question on there, in the equity task force recommendations, it says develop trust to improve customer service, and I have been one would like to see us use more of develop trust through community service, because I think as an educational body that we're a community, which is all inclusive of our students, parents, staff, and all of that, and maybe use to me, it's a little more fitting word, improve community service, as part of that development of trust. Just
So Trustee Irving, just as a reminder, this came from a task force and this was their recommendation, so we can't change the recommendations from the task force. But we hear you, and as we continue to work through these recommendations over the next at least 2 years, you're going to see it in the district goals. It's going to be embedded in there, so we're going to continue to do this work. And so we can, again, focus and add to the recommendations of the task force. Can't change it because that would be a little disingenuous, but we can certainly always add to and make it more applicable as the time passes. This report, actually, that's the last report that we have not come to the board with this year. So improving communications of parents with color, either August or September, it's ready to go. It's just we haven't been able to find time and an agenda, but that is the last recommendation from the 6 that we will become to the board, and you can provide those comments then again to reinforce it.
Okay, thank you again. Thank you for your report.
I was just gonna echo those. He took the words out of my mouth, but I think the first part around the GATE program, my mother was one of those parents that decided, not me, no, my older sister, to keep my sister in the same school as the rest of our brothers and sisters because, Martone was far away. Even though Bless was provided, she's like, I'm not gonna have one of my kids out there and then all the rest of them out here. So it's really, I understand that fear. I understand that, wanting to keep all your kids together. So it's part of the work that we must do is how do we, because we see that there's a lot of our students that spread out to the district that are not only maybe not underrepresented, but eligible. That's the key part. They're eligible and they're unrepresented. That's part of the work that we talk about. These are indicators of why folks aren't in in AP or GATE. But I think that we need to look at what does that underrepresented look like of individuals that are eligible, right? How is our student body eligible or ready to take on the task of AP? If that's the equity part, right? Because we need to get them there. Whether we need to provide the tools and the foundation for them to be successful. And if they are, it's gonna fall on them. But we need to give them the pull. We can't, like race up numbers or move numbers down. And then, we have individuals that, I've heard from a lot of students, AP is very scary. I don't know if I'll make it. IB, the same thing. We need to give them the courage backed up with tools to actually say, hey, I can take on AP no problem, right? And that they're actually gonna deliver on their end, right? So I think that's the important part of how are we building eligible equity amongst our students, so that then when they get to these opportunities, the rest are factors that we can take care of, and hopefully we're taking care of in these equities. But the most important part is how we getting them eligible to be there and succeed. I have Trustee Wes.
Thank you for this report. You did an excellent job. So many times programs are implemented. I've seen this in over 25 years in education, and there's no follow through. We never find out, we put these great ideas into place, but we don't know how they're working. And what I really appreciate about this report is we see our success, but we also see our areas that we need to improve. And I'm thankful that we're not just glossing over everything and making it seem like, oh, everything's great, because we can never improve if we don't know where we're lacking. So I appreciate that. One of the things that stood out to me was our AVID students, which AVID is such a great program. Our AVID students are required to take one IB class. Is that what you said?
Yes, at Modesto High.
At Modesto High. And so, first of all, that's great. That kind of like forces people to try, when they're a little bit afraid. So my question is, how did those students do in those IB classes? Were they successful? Did they pass?
So I will have to get that for you. I actually don't have that information currently, but I can get that back to you in a board communication. Does that work?
That would be great. I mean, just forcing people to take a class doesn't mean they're going to be successful in it. So I was just curious how they did. Thank you again for the report.
Thank you.
Trustee Marks?
Thank you. This was a great report. A lot of information in here and gathered well. I'm glad we have the way to collect this data now. It helps inform the board as we move forward with helping ensure that the parts where we found challenges, that we can move, we can find solutions to those challenges. And I'm pleased that our suspension rates are lower than they were for the most part, especially years ago. I don't know if Mr. Irvin remembers, but we had huge expulsion rates too. We had about 30 a month. And so it's just really, believe it or not, that's where we were. So it's so great to see the changes now, and students are engaged in school, and then to see where we're working to help them enter the AP and IB courses. So I had a few questions. I wanted to see on the suspensions, especially the communication with the parents. I think that's really important for them to know the why. I love that you said that. That was understanding the why of their student suspension, and so they can work on it at home and then work on it at school with whoever the teacher or staff member might be that could help them. So I thought that was really helpful, because our goal is to change those suspension rates and continue to see them drop, though I saw some that went up. So I know that's going to be changed. And then on the GATE program, so interestingly enough, we had a GATE, when I first came on the board, we had a GATE program at James Marshall School. I think 60 students, maybe 90 students were in it. And then we decided that school, because back then we didn't have enough space for all the students, so we collapsed that program and moved it over to Martone, which was really disappointing. We lost about 50% of the students because the parents couldn't get to Martone. And so when I looked at the schools, I saw like almost 40 students or 35 students at 3 or 4 schools. So as I looked at that, thinking about putting GATE program maybe at, I don't know if this is something that they've thought of, but to put it at a location that parents might be able to walk to, just like Trustee, I know Lopez, almost called you Mr. Anyway, so Trustee Lopez, because I know you guys by your first name, so it's easier, to be able to have that location be probably it's a key information. I know you had transportation on there, and that has been a key, I think, for parents to allow their students to attend. And I know it's a greater commitment by parents to do that. And then lastly, when we see this report the next time, it would be helpful if we could have the numbers of the students. So I can see if they're decreasing or increasing on the suspension rate. We had just demographics, which is extremely helpful because we really haven't done a lot of that in the past with the percentage-wise, but to see, is the program growing or decreasing? Is the suspension rates growing or decreasing? Because that's important to us to know that as well. So I thought it was a great report. I appreciated all the information that you gave us tonight, and I think it will inform us as we move forward.
Definitely. Trustee Meneses.
Thank you. Thank you for, like they all said, thank you for this report, especially because as a statistics instructor, I value data. And so I like to look at you know, I look at the data closely to try to see if there are any patterns. So I really see a lot of patterns and a lot of stuff. We have work to do. We have a lot of work to do in this district. So I want to bring up a couple of things, and then you asked for input, so I'm going to give you a couple of input that I see, and then I think there are some clarifying questions that I have. So I'll try not to be too long. I have a question. So my first question is on the recommended action items for the GATE task force. It says to evaluate current program eligibility and address supports for students who do not attend a GATE site. I just have a clarifying question that those students are the students that decline GATE but are eligible, or are those for any students that are at sites that aren't in GATE?
So for that specific one, that was for all students, but specifically the eligibility students that were eligible but did not attend because of the transportation or other issues.
Okay. So one comment on GATE. First, all my kids are going through GATE. My oldest son went through GATE, his elementary. My middle son is finishing up GATE, and my daughter is going to go into GATE. However, that being said, you know, Jaime Escalante, this is just in my email, I have it down there, is students will rise to the expectations that we set for them. All we need is ganas. And so I think that, I wonder how we can give all our kids those expectations. Aside from that, you know, when I look at these data, I see an access problem. If we continue to talk to parents and groups about what GATE can do, the benefits, that doesn't change the fact that they're still going to say no because they've got a brother in the school. That's not going to, we can benefit all we want, but it's still not going to solve the problem. So I see an access problem. If there was a way, like Trustee Irvin said, I'm not saying get rid of GATE altogether, but if there was a way to give more kids more access across the district, we could see those numbers increase and give more opportunities to students. So just something to keep in mind as that input. The other thing here in the data that I see is that if you look at the difference of students, the Hispanic or Latino students, I'm going to focus on that piece right there, Hispanic or Latino students in GATE compared to across the district, that's a 47% difference. That's an understatement to say it's underrepresented. And we're talking about a 3% difference, right? Whereas white students, it's really only 3% higher than the overrepresentation. So it's really, but 47% difference is to say they're underrepresented is, like I said, it's an understatement. However, if you look at the AP percentage, the difference between the enrollment and the student demographics across 9 to 12 is only a 13% difference. If we were to, if GATE in fact was a feeder into AP, we would see those percentages to be similar. But they're not, which is telling me that GATE might not be the thing that gets kids into AP. We get a lot of students that aren't in GATE that go into AP. So I wonder what is going on, and especially in the junior high, because that's really what's feeding into these AP programs. That's giving us the success rate of boosting that percentage. That's the key indicator that I saw. To go into this AVID, I'd like to know how many other schools have AVID across our district other than Modesto High.
We can provide that later.
Okay, and I think one of the things we see here is a good example of how we can get kids involved in AP across our district. Is what about those other schools that have AVID having some similar program as Modesto High does in making them go into IB as well? If we're preparing them for college. One of the things, so I'm sorry, I told you I had a lot. On the key findings for AP, I was an AP teacher, so AP is close to my heart. I was actually reading, I just heard that College Board is offering an AP pre-calculus, not this next school year, but the following school year, to get more students of color involved in AP and get ready for high school, for college mathematics. I'm super excited about that. As an AP math teacher, I think that's gonna be great for our students. I'm a little concerned about the lose their good grades. I know how we just mentioned that a lot of times AP allows you to have a weighted grade. But I think sometimes that equitable grading thing comes into play here, and students fear that, well, I'm going to lose my good grades because there's just a lot more work, and I'd like to continue to play football, or I'd like to continue to do this, and I can't do that while participating in AP programs. So I think the work that we're doing in equitable grading might help in that at some point. We'll have to see how that connects in the future. So that was another thing that I saw. And then the last thing I wanted to ask about was this has to do with the CTE programs, market interdistrict transfer availability. My question is, how are we going to provide transportation to students that are interested? We fall into this, I feel like we fall into the same trap we do with GATE here, in that we have such great CTE programs across our district. But if my parents have to work and I have to walk to school, there's no way I'm going to Enox for computer science or forensics when I can walk down the street to Modesto High. So what is our plan there for providing transportation to those students to make those decisions?
So let me try to address that, see if this works. I'll turn it off. So really, it goes through part of what Barkus is going to be providing in her report in August, September. We can't provide transportation to every child that wants to go to Enox for forensic science. We do, in this last 3 years, we have opened up all of the schools to all inter-districts for that opportunity. But what we found, and what I found the second year that I was here, is we were having kids being transferred from one side of the district to the other side of the district for one class, but they were missing half of their English and half of their math, but they were getting culinary arts. And so what we need to do is have robust opportunities for CTE within regions, but transporting 3 kids across in a full bus doesn't, one, it's difficult to schedule that, but secondly, for the kids, there were hours and hours of missed core opportunities. So long story short, we need to really take a look at our CTE programs, identify all the different opportunities that they have at the school. Every school can't have, 20 different CTE programs. They can really have 3, maybe 4 at the most to be able to have it sustainable and make sure that they have robust programming. And we have aligned a lot of the programs now, finally, this last year, and we've added a number of different programs, gotten rid of some other programs that kids weren't necessarily engaged in, and I'm excited to give that report. It's either August or September when it's scheduled.
Thank you. Yeah, the CTE programs are amazing in our district. We get reports, they're phenomenal. And, I would even say if, the student could not have to go for one class, they just go to the school. They just transfer to Enox and go to Enox for the whole day. They don't go for one. I mean, I know that's difficult, but, because that would be too hard, I understand, to get them for one class and not. But when we don't provide that, then we're really just allowing we're allowing the families and teachers, the families and students that are not socially economically disadvantaged, we're giving them more opportunities because they have the ability to transport themselves. So I'd like to see some equity there. I know it's difficult to do, but I just wonder what, something to think about as we move forward.
Well, we've actually thought quite a bit about it, and I don't know that there's more opportunities on the other side of town. I think there are tremendous opportunities on this side of town as well, so we can take a look at what those opportunities are, and if there's a program that we see that would be a driving force for whatever side of town that is, then we look to see what program we want to cut and add it in. And so, so it's not, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's a side of town issue. It's I have a car.
I meant to say school issue.
Yeah, I have a car. I have the time because I can always flexibly change my schedule because I have a blue collar, high paying job. I can do that. I'm gonna drive my kid across town because I can. That's what I'm saying.
What if we took that program that's across town that is engaging and we bring it to wherever those students are that want to be able to take
that would be amazing. That's exactly, I think we're on the same page.
Then we're going
now.
back full circle.
Yeah.
And I do think that we have, and you'll be able to see this in, again, August or September, the different CTE programs. And so you'll be able to see the different regions and schools and look at opportunities. At that time, if you see something that, let's say, Mohai or Downey that you'd like to see an additional program, let's say it's forensic science, don't know, there's some other ones we've added there, we can take a look at those programs, identify which program we'd like to cut out, because you can't, a school can't support, it's not financial, it's just the amount of number of kids that can go into the classrooms and the instructors, and we can make those determinations. And that, we'll make sure in that report that we've divided it out by school, so you can look at what the schools look like and what offerings they have to ensure that we have really what I'm hearing you is equity of programming is what we're looking at.
Yes.
Because I don't know if it's about a matter of moving kids. I think it's providing the opportunities in all of the areas to ensure that our kids have access to high quality, critical thinking CTE programs that ultimately will lead them to experiences for a living wage job or skills to be successful in college.
That's all I'm saying, providing equitable access. I think we're on the same page now. One last question. These are gonna be yearly audits, is that correct? Like you're gonna do the same thing moving forward yearly?
Yes.
Okay. I await the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see a change.
Trustee Irvin had a follow-up.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on that, like, I came up through the Los Angeles Unified School District, and they had what they call SCROC, Southern California Regional Occupational Center. So with the so we all went to one location, and it was just a huge occupational, CTE center where you had all these students going to those different CTE programs. Either early in the morning or late in the afternoon, however you chose them. But transportation wasn't an issue because you had buses full of kids taking those same classes from the different high schools, and they all went to the same regional occupational center. We got many high schools, maybe some strategy like that where you can have, if you got all the kids who want to go in law enforcement from all the schools, and they come and they transport it here, like during the morning, for their CTE course, or if they decide to take the afternoon, because they had the morning and you had afternoon, you had two choices to choose when you wanted to take. So most of us athletes took it in the mornings.
Right.
Yeah. So we took our class in the morning. That way we had the afternoons for practice open up. So it's,
idea.
I was in high school about 5-6 years ago. So.
Thank you, Trustee Irvin. Any other questions or comments from our board members? Hearing none, this is a report only, and so we'll be moving on to B4, report on Improve Your Tomorrow, Dr. Nelson.
Good evening, President Lopez, members of the board, Superintendent Naguchi, and our fantastic Modesto community. I'm Dr. Will Nelson in front of you again. It's nice to see you all and all your faces. I'll take you through an end of the year overview of the Improve Your Tomorrow program. I also have with me today Michael Lynch, who will be sitting, actually they moved up to the front. He is the CEO and co-founder of the program, as well as Selena A. Cox, who's the regional director. They'll assist at the end of the presentation for any questions we may have. So just a reminder that this program aligns to our district goals to increase students being identified as preparing a college and career indicators, as well as 1.4, our MTSS system for supporting all of our students. The purpose of the program is to go over 4 areas. First one being reviewing the goals, the program, and the data, which is actually the second bullet, which is the key performance indicators. And then our successing challenges, and I'll explain that slide when we get there. It's a kind of an end of the year recap that we did. And then our next steps, where we're going to update and revise our 3-year program. The key performance indicators, and if you remember, was about a year ago, a little less than or more than a year ago, are based on these areas that are highlighted on the screen, from attendance, or DNF rate, 8th grade promotion, graduation, college qualification and attendance, and a qualitative survey. This was a survey of students. Now, some of these indicators, as I go through the data, you will find we don't have yet, and that's okay because remember, we're growing the program. And the idea is to have the students in there for multiple years. So looking at our success criteria and our data indicators is attendance first. And as you review the slide, let me just say a couple of things. One is that the Downey piece, where you don't see Q1 data, was primarily because we didn't have all the students identified at that point. That's why you see it for Hanshaw and not for Downey. However, I do want to point out that you see that there was growth in attendance, and even when they're compared in each of our data slides, we decided to compare them to the students who were not in the program. That's the entire student body at the school. How well did our IYT students do? And our attendance was an area of very good promise for us as far as our students wanting to participate and be at school. And when we get to the survey, you'll see that continues in their statements. The grade data indicator is our growth point. It is an area in which we still have a lot of work to do. As you look at semester 1, and I apologize, I couldn't figure out how to make semester 1 on top. So semester 1 and then semester 2 on top. As you review that data, as you can see, our IYT students at Hanshaw, F rate did go up. And that is something that has to be addressed as we move forward, especially when compared to their colleagues or other students on the campus who are not involved in the program. Grades also for Downey was very similar, although you see there was a good kind of push when it came to the F and Ds, but Ds actually increased for Downey High School students because there was a decline in Cs. So there is some academic supports that we need to incorporate into the program. Promotion and graduation, as well as those qualifying for college, these indicators will not be in this year's data. It'll be something that have to be provided for next year. Primarily because Downey, we don't have seniors for this year. Now there will be students progressing in grades, so there will be students in other grades as we move forward. And remember, students are recruited for this program. I didn't say this at the beginning, so forgive me. The students are not placed, students are not, oh, you want to go to college, be an IYT. These are students based off of feedback from parents, from staff, and from administration and counseling who will benefit because they need support social, emotionally, and or academically. And in Hanshaw's case, the 24 8th grade students who were involved in IYT all were promoted, with 12 hitting to Downey, 9 hitting to Johansson, and 3 hitting to Modesto High. And remember, Johansson and Modesto do not have an IYT program at this time. So the survey, which is an impact report, was provided by IYT and their team with Selena and Michael here and the site staff. As you read through, and I'm not going to read every single one to you, but I just wanted to point out a couple of things, that you will see that our students actually feel empowered that they're in. They like having a mentor, even though we've had some challenges through the year, excuse me. They also improve their self-confidence. It's the middle bullet there. 93.6% of the students agree that their overall self-confidence has improved in taking part in the program. And then at the bottom there, at the very last bullet I want to point out, it says members believe that being a part of IYT, they could make a positive impact within their community. So that self-esteem, that promise continued, even though we know there's some challenges that we still have to face academically. Mentors was an ongoing challenge. If you remember, a year ago, we discussed that. We discussed that that was something that we wanted to keep the mentor to mentee ratio as small as possible. And working with IYT and with our district leadership, we did everything we could. However, maintaining the mentor through all the changes with COVID and just personnel that we all face in every industry has been a challenge. And as you see on here on the slide, I'll just point out a few things to you. That Downey's mentors went down to 1 since March. And think about that end of the year grade data, kind of connects. Hanshaw, we were targeting 3, and they went down to 1 member who can only do 10 hours a week. So even though there was ongoing recruiting efforts, reaching out, we put on our website, I think Dr. Naguchi even emailed you guys to get word out. It was an ongoing challenge. And something that is very important to note that IYT utilizes AmeriCorps, and when we get into January, it becomes difficult for AmeriCorps students to participate because there's only so much time left in the school year and they have to complete their hours. So we actually, at that time of the year, if you look at what happened at Downey and Hanshaw with our mentors, it was very difficult to find more AmeriCorps students who could be mentors for this school year. Of course, we'll have going into next year. The next steps for supporting our mentors, and this is actually directly from working with IYT, from recruiting, making sure our leadership development, improving the curriculum from IYT, this is what they are doing, and partnering with Stanislaus State College Corps, which I think will give us another opportunity for us to have mentors, and then looking at increasing the second bullet there, increasing the living stipend, meaning trying to pay them more, because our mentors were making some life choices and it limits our ability to have them. Now, this slide here, and I'll give you a chance to read it, just allow me to speak while you're reading it here, it's a little hefty, was just to explain a couple of things. First is monthly we meet, and we meaning the district leadership, IYT, and the 2 site principals at Hanshaw and Downey, and we go over what are our successes, what's going well, and then what are our challenges, and then there's follow-up and helping. At the end of the year, we kind of put together, well, what did we face this year? What did we go through? How did we address our next steps? And many of the data points I just went over really are reflected into what you see here. And as we move forward with the program, when I get to the last slide, you will see that, really solidifying the program at Hanshaw and at Downey is going to be key. Even though Hanshaw has students going to other schools, that support at Downey and Hanshaw and making sure the program is really producing what we want it to produce will be important before we expand. So going back to the slide here, as you can see, our successes was making it through all the COVID challenges, even with the end of the year and things being much better than they were. If you remember just 10 months ago, we could barely have certain kinds of meetings. People couldn't come on campus. What would that look like when we were reaching out to students, when we were recruiting, to also the Omicron virus and the uptick in the holidays in which that affected mentors and mentees and students being on and off campuses. Even the college tours we had to delay because of the fact that colleges weren't allowing kids on campus at a certain point in the fall. So that led us to still continuing to do activities with our kids, which was a successful piece, that we didn't allow those limits or even with the mentors to keep us from working with the kids. However, if you look on the right column, that gets into the challenges. It gets into the staff turnover, as well as just some basic logistical things that we need to improve upon in the sites. And I mentioned we meet with them monthly, but the school site principals actually meet with their IYT leaders in some cases weekly, sometimes more than once a week, depending on some of the challenges and/or things they may need. But that's just streamlining some processes, like helping IYT understand how to get a bus and utilize a bus to do a college trip, to making sure that we move a classroom space. We immediately identified a classroom space for both schools because of the summer, put them a little further away from the lunch quad where we wanted it in a more open area, more freedom of access. When kids come during the school day, they wouldn't interrupt other classes. And so both schools, I know the slide says Downey, but just talking with the Hanshaw principal, both of them are looking at trying to move the IYT space closer to the lunch courtyard. So going into the next steps of our plan here would be, for this year being year one and then going into year two, will to keep the program at Hanshaw and Downey and work on our mentors and continue to move forward with our work. Year three, coming back to the board, we'll be able to see is this something we want to expand, because those Hanshaw students don't all just go to Downey. So it is something for us to think about going into the future. And then for what would be year four would be, do we go beyond Hanshaw, Downey, and say 2 other schools where before? Do we consider broadening it, or do we do similar, go 4, give another 2 years, and then come back to the board in year 5? But we wanted to provide a plan here for moving forward, and also to give you a rationale for at this time to not expand the program, because there's some work we still need to do. So at this time, I will take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the public? Debbie?
Brett Hart, to be exact. Debbie Martinez, I am going to use the umbrella of Advocate for Justice and California Legal Rule Associations. I am on both their teams. I have a comment. And Mark, 2011 and 12 is when I entered this district. So I haven't stopped the quest. I gave countless hours. I don't get paid 6 figures. I don't even get paid 4. Chad, you one time brought a gentleman from Philadelphia. I remember that whole auditorium at Gallo. I was the only one he called out. And when I went up to the stage, I looked over at Pastor Anderson. That's my pastor. He still is upstairs. He shook his head. I went up there, and he said, "Tell me why I'm here." And I said, "School to prison pipeline, time to shut it down." I don't know if you remembered that day. I'm here now, 11 years later. It was my great efforts to put this conversation on the books today. I didn't get paid. I got ridiculed. I was called every name in the book. I got dirty looks. People had attitudes. But look at where we're at today. We are finally acknowledging that our disadvantaged population of colored children were very, very much disadvantaged in this district, and they still are. You just had a mom right now under public comments crying because her little boy sat in juvenile hall. DA doesn't want to release charges. I want to know who's going to call DA tomorrow and tell him Mr. San just made a terrible mistake, Dr. Naguchi. I sit here constantly.
So,
And now here
Ms.
we
Martinez?
are. Here we are. It's still my floor, thank you.
No, I
Here we
understand.
are.
It needs to relate to the agenda
Here
item.
we are talking about suspensions, talking about improvements, talking about everything that ties into the school to prison pipeline that I have been voicing for 10 years. You may not like me, ma'am, but you can thank me for your paycheck every time you go cash it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions any comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it down back to the board. I have Trustee Irvin.
Good evening, Dr. Nelson. And thank you for the presentation and the update. One of the things I want to make clear is in the terms of the program, being a new program, and this could be first, for future reference, and I'm coming from a evaluator's perspective, 'cause I used to evaluate programs, particularly mentor programs and after-school programs. I was to tell them, don't be so focused on successes and challenges your first year of implementation. Ride into it to develop your foundation first. And then your second year, you begin to show those goals, those objectives that, you're working towards. So people don't get a misconception is, oh, it's not being successful or being successful. The first year is that year to get you to get going, to get going, get up your resources, get everything in place, and to begin to start the process of really digging into it for year two. And so, and I just want you, I see the CEO back there, to let them know that. So I'm not coming from that, that framework, because as a program, evaluator, I know, it's gonna take time, and especially with mentoring, because although we look in the community for mentors, everybody who raises their hand and say, I want to be a mentor, ain't not cut out for it, when the screening is all done and all the, you go through all those motions trying to screen mentors and, interview mentors, you interview 10, you may get 1, that is the reality of mentoring. And so, so if you, would, year 2, now you start to build the momentum. And then, by year 3, then we're here looking at, oh, wow, what was our challenges? What are our successes? How did we meet our goals, our objectives, and things like that? And also year 2 gives you an opportunity to revisit some goals and objectives and say, should we focus our attention more in this direction, since we're starting to see lean toward, some successes early on in our process, in our program. And that's why I want to see the reduction of the D and the F. Maybe a goal can, like attendance, may not, need to be addressed, so to speak, when you look at the variation, the variable of the attendance between non-participants and participants. I don't know if that goes with the margin of error in terms of, collecting the data. I'm not a mathematician, but I am an evaluator, and I like, you use data to drive your program. So it may be, hey, let's not focus our attention more on how to reduce the D's and F's with the students that we're making contact with. Right. Going through that part as well. And then the survey, I wanted to say, was there, did you happen to do any of the focus groups with students and parents as part of that survey as another strategy as well to get some firsthand knowledge? There's 2 kids that I personally mentor that are in the program at Downey, so, I pick their brain and things like that, and they like it, And so, let me go through. So there will be, so you'll have freshmen, sophomores, and juniors from the schools next year in the program, right? And also, when you're looking at your program in terms of its core strategy, maybe it's not more so mentoring than it is student support. That can be the whole crux of it, is providing the support they need to be successful towards the goals that have been established. Because, from a mentoring perspective and framework, people tend to hold you to the research and the effective best practices in terms of, how many hours a mentee is getting with that mentor and things like that, versus, from from a student support framework, you know, you're not bound by that, but you're providing the services and the support necessary for them to be successful. Also, have they thought about, you know, providing stipends to community mentors? I know the mentors are coming from AmeriCorps, but there's an opportunity to provide stipends for community mentors, you know, to be a part of the project. You know, if there's some other funding sources that could be leveraged, you know, to say, hey, we can provide a stipend for some mentors to get involved in the program. Like I said, like with all programs, there's not a mentoring program probably in the country that's not going through the same growing pains in terms of mentors. You know, so when you look at that, you know, we were even joking the other day on a mentoring call that, you know, maybe we can put something on ZipRecruiter, you know, or something, and get us some mentors. But, you know, everybody is having those same, you know, same growing pains when it comes to mentors. And so, again, I think it shows promise. You know, it's 1 year, you know, so it shows promise. And I think iron out some of those things you identified have been challenges can work its way out, you know, when you reassess the goals and reassess the priorities that you have currently, and seeing that, you know, what can we focus our efforts on that's going to give us the biggest, you know, result for our students, you know, to be successful. And so that's all I had. And again, thank you for the report.
Sure. Should I reply and just say amen?
Yeah.
I think you're exactly right. And maybe Selena or Michael can come up to speak about the stipends.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're exploring, they meaning IYT is exploring other options. And I just want to remind, because what you said about the social emotional support is really the foundation of the program. The benefit is better academic achievement. So you're exactly right. A little more than a year ago when Michael was here presenting with me, when we proposed the program, we actually said it may take 2 or more years to really see the academic outcome. However, I do think that we still have to have those measuring devices as we're moving forward, because the idea of IYT is not just to help students who have a need, but also to graduate, to make sure that they attend college and graduate from college, not just attend. And so that's kind of for lack of a better way of saying, a 10-year plan. So I think you're exactly right in everything you just said. And as we move forward, the program will be in student support services. Working with other supportive elements for our students will help. And a good example is this: IYT is not a tutorial program. However, we found one of the challenges when I was talking about the district bureaucracy was as simple as some of the mentors didn't even understand the academic supports at the on-school site, and making sure that was a part of our conversation. So that was a learning piece that we need to make sure we have in at progress report time, not just when it gets to report card where it could be too late, and ensuring that that is something that our mentors are aware of and utilizing, but also the turnover mentors created that kind of challenge. Right. So, you know, it's not to make excuses, but to be very upfront and transparent with our board and community that you're exactly right. I think there's promise, but we need to solidify, make sure we have what we really want from the program for our kids so we can move forward.
Right. And my last one, I left it up because going back to the D and the F, that if the focus is, if you have another a focal point when you're talking about the achievement, how are they focusing or helping with homework? Because, you know, turning in homework's done wonders for grades. You know, when you go from 40% or 50% turning in homework to 80, 90% turning in homework completion, that in itself raises grades. And I know that's one of the things that we focused on. It's like, okay, getting that homework in.
Yeah, and that's part of the equity grading piece. I think Trustee Wes has said that earlier. Not necessarily about the amount of work, but the complexity and the rigor and the supports for the work, so we can help the students graduate and be prepared for college and career. So you're exactly right. But that's part of the growth. That's part of us also solidifying having the mentors. The work space, for lack of a better word, the IYT space did provide some of that support, but we can do better.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Trustee Maestas?
Thank you. I have a few questions, and I think they're clarifying mostly from the presentation we got from Improve Your Tomorrow long time ago, a year ago. So first question is, actually has nothing to do with that part, but the attendance. The attendance numbers and the attendance rates, how do those compare to the entire district, not just in those particular schools? Just to see what a comparison is in the percent, because there was a lot of attendance issues with COVID and things going on, and I just kind of want to see how they match up, not only site-wise, but district-wide. Because the reason I say that is because there are sites that, these are the only two sites with the program, and so it'd be interesting to compare it with a site that doesn't have the program, not just the students that aren't in the program within that school. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And we could, through our board communication, get you that data, because we have
Perfect.
attendance rates for all of them. We were looking at the specific sites because of the challenges of that site, to compare them to kids that are living in their world as compared to, say, Downey with Enox and Mohai.
Right. Second question is, this is probably a silly question because I probably know the answer to this. Those 12 kids that are promoted from into Downey High School from Hanshaw, those will continue in the program, correct?
Correct.
And they'll continue with the same, well, we only have one mentor, but will they continue with the same mentor that they had at Hanshaw into Downey?
I will have to, no, I don't think so, right? Yeah, thank you, Salinas. I feel like I'm in the Senate here. I have to turn to my lawyer, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the challenge of the mentors is that's the issue. So as they progress up, we will have to see and revisit if we solidify our mentors. Could we do that? Could we split a mentor between two sites so they can follow their 8th graders on? I think that's awesome, but we're very few on mentors right now, and that's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, and just to go back to something that Trustee Irvin had said about this being the first year, research shows that it really does take 3 years for programs to really get their foot on, really get a hold onto something. And here's another question I asked having to do with this. How often do the mentors meet with their students?
Well, as often as necessary, but Selena, is there a specific schedule that we have for them? It's at least bi-weekly, at least by that. But I know students are being pulled out of class when needed. Teachers can send a parent, can request, because part of the recruiting is reaching out to the parents, letting them know, and having the student buy in, not a parent or a different adult on campus saying you should be in a program. So there are some cases where we actually had to work with our site staff, part of that district piece of working with site staff to understand that Will Nelson needs to go see his mentor, and his mentor's here at this time. Can he be excused from your class?
Right. The reason I asked for that is because, the most success I had with students that were struggling and then I saw them grow, it was because of the relationship that I was able to build with that student. And I got to see my students every day for an hour and build that relationship within yes, teaching mathematics, but also building a relationship. And so when I build that relationship over the course of a year, over the course of 2 years and 3 years, that I think is where the success is. And so this first year really just is building a relationship with the kid. And so we see the numbers here, but what we don't see is the relationship that the mentor has made with that student. And that is where the impact is that I think we're going to see later on. It would be neat to see if the mentor can continue with that same student to continue to build that relationship. But I'm going to leave it up to the program specialists on this. I was just interested in that because I just know from my experience, the success that I've had with students has always, as a mentor and as a teacher, has always been the relationship piece more than anything else I can provide into that. So,
No, that's another amen, so you're exactly right. And one of the findings from the impact report, which was the survey, 95% of the members, meaning the students of IYT, stated that IYT provides them with a safe space to be their authentic self. So that's part of that relationship piece and that trust, even with everything that was going on.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to mention that's the important part. I mean, I think we understand metrics, we understand how we gauging success, but I think that it's indeed, and I know we're very fortunate that we have a lot of mentors on this board that worked on this, and they can tell you it's not a 9 to 5. It's not a one-time thing. It's you first have to build rapport with students, because they understand that to some people they're quote unquote a number, right? And so you have to get past that barrier that I'm not here for that. I'm not here for the stipend, though I think that or the paycheck, though I think that we need to invest into great mentorship, but they need to see that it's really about them and their connection that you're trying to make. That it takes about a year. It takes way more than a year to do that. So I really appreciate the work that's being done. I was able to talk to one of the mentors at one of the open houses. Great individual, and the kids that that were walking in and were able to engage, you can tell that he was investing into them, right? Into who they are, not into their homework. It's important, but I think the first part is, making sure that they know that they're here for you as an individual, and that a byproduct of it will be academics, especially in mentorship overall.
Yes.
Dr. West?
I wasn't going to speak because my questions were all answered, but Trustee Maestas triggered something with the mentorship and the relationships. Obviously, we all know relationships are the key. I had written down during your presentation, the next time this is presented, I would love to see a couple students come in. The data's great, but when I hear a kid talk about what this means to them and what a difference it's made in their life, or a parent or the mentor themselves, that's going to impact me a great deal when I hear their story from their heart. So just a suggestion, next time maybe we can hear some of those stories. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, this is only a report, and so we'll be moving on to the next item, but I've been asked by a couple of individuals that if we can take a 10-minute break, so we'll be back at around 8:27. Okay.
Check 1, 2. 1, 2. Test 1, 2. 1, 2.
Alrighty, everyone. If I can have everyone come back to their seats, we'll get started. Hello? Okay, there we go. We'll be moving on to B5, approval of first reading of proposed revision of board policy BP 6145.5, student organization, equal access, and review of proposed revision of administrative regulation AR 6145.5, student organization and equal access. Mr. Nelson.
Microphone on? Yes. Testing. The purpose of this review, BP 6145.5, that was provided to the Board of Trustees regarding questions that arose at the Saturday, April 9th special board meeting. At the board meeting, BP 6145.5, student organization and equal access, 712 was brought to the board with suggested revisions. In the course of the discussion on this item, the board requested legal counsel provide guidance. At the board direction, legal counsel has recommended that we must allow a non-curricular student club access to facilitate and provide supervision, but an employee is prohibited from participating, otherwise it would be considered supporting a religion. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the first reading of the proposed revisions of Board Policy BP 6145.5, student organizations and equal access, and a review of proposed revisions of administrative regulation AR 6145.5, student organizations and equal access.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nelson. I'll take it out to the public. Is there any questions on this or comments on this? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. I have a comment from Trustee Marks.
Thank you. So I read the item from the legal counsel, and all it really says is that you can't establish anything with religion, and that it was enacted to permit religious clubs to meet, but recognize that permitting staff members to participate would violate the Constitution because it would be viewed as advancing religion, just as you said. So here was my suggestion, because I felt like it was calling out religious groups for just religious groups. But it also, in the AR, it talks about the non-curriculum related student groups. So my only change that I would like to ask to have is that we take out the word religious meetings and change it to non-curricular related student meetings. So that was all I would like to change. So it's not just pulling out only religious groups, because it states it again in ARE. Okay, let me find it. It's just a few pages over. Let's see. So here's what the paragraph says in the AR. It says, for any curriculum-related student group, the staff advisor shall provide guidance and teaching to students to ensure that the group's activities are aligned to the district's goals and objectives, and shall provide supervision and leadership of the group. The principal shall have final authority in determining the assignment and role of the staff advisor. Wait a second. I thought it had it's the second paragraph. For non-curriculum, that was lined out. For non-curriculum related student groups, a staff advisor may be assigned voluntarily to observe meetings for purposes of maintaining order and protecting student safety. Staff advisors and other school employees shall not promote, lead, or participate in the meetings. So that was stated a few times throughout this whole thing, was that the staff will not promote, lead, or participate in the meetings. And so I thought, well, if it says that for all the other groups, why can't we just take out religion or religious meetings and make it for all the groups, non-curriculum related student group meetings that you just can't, they're in a non-participatory capacity, that employees shall be present but non-participatory. So it looked to me like that's what this, I think it was just ensuring that, I don't know why CSBA wrote it that way, but they did. So they just said that employees of the school shall be present at religious meetings. I don't know why they called them out. I couldn't figure out why they just said only religious meetings and not all non-curriculum related student groups. So that's my only comment, because I read the item from the attorney, and it sounded like that wasn't what the issue was. It was just making sure that a staff member wasn't promoting religion.
So trustee March, what exactly are you asking to add on what page?
Okay, so item on BP 6145.5B.
Yep, I got it.
Okay, number 3, I apologize, I should have called that out first. So the number 3, so it says employees of the school shall be present at, and then it says religious meetings only in a non-participatory capacity.
Okay.
So I'm asking that we just take the word religious out and put non-curriculum related student, and then in meetings is already there.
So I guess my question is, and I'll turn this over to Mr. Godot if he has this answer. In the legal brief that we received, is there reference to religious meetings relative to teachers or staff being non-participatory? That's the key to this, right? It's at a religious club, if you will, a Christian club, that the teacher's not participating in the activities there. Is that?
For a Jewish club or yeah.
Christian, whichever.
Yeah, any religious group.
Yeah, I think the key here is that it's calling out because of the Constitution and the separation there of not having sponsorship of a religious group or organization by the club or, by a school employee.
Right.
That it's calling it out specifically there to ensure that it's not occurring. I hear what you're saying is that it's also says there shall be no sponsorship of the meeting by the school or staff.
Right.
And what I hear you saying is that should cover it. Is that it?
Yeah, I didn't know why they called out religious groups instead of,
So that-
because of the conflict, I understand, because of the conflict between church and state and the view of that. But to me, it also, if you covered it with so if you have a non-curriculum related student meeting, so if you have any other group meeting, let's call it.
Basket weaving.
Okay, basket weaving. Okay, we have a basket weaving class. So this is just saying that any employee, they shall be present at the basket weaving class and only in a non-participatory capacity. So it could be a political group. It could be anything that's non-curriculum related. And so to me, it just seemed odd. And the former school board member that I said this to, because I said, could you take a look at this? Because I remember when we voted on this the first time, this wasn't an issue because it was to allow students to have free access to clubs on campus, but it didn't call out religious groups specifically.
Right, so that I think is the crux of the issue here. It's not about basket weaving or a political group, it's about religion. And in this case, my understanding that legal counsel said that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Godot, that for religion, the teacher, I'm going to assume it's a teacher, the teacher cannot participate in that. It's the religion, it's the religion club, not the basket weaving club.
Yeah, I didn't see it in what he wrote, but I could see where you're coming from, that you have a concern about that. And so,
I don't have a concern. That was my understanding of what legal counsel had advised. And if that's not what legal counsel had advised, then this needs to come back yet again, because that's ultimately at the crux of what number 3 is saying.
I could read it. I could read just the paragraph that he sent per his email response from the attorney, if you'd like. And then if I'm mistaken, I'm happy to say, yeah, let's keep it. When I read it, I said, I didn't see a reason why religion had to be in there. But it says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So that's what the Constitution says. So that's why that's the quote that he used from that.
But what was the recommendation? So again, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Godot. What did Lozano Smith recommend relative to number 3?
Well, it was stated we must allow non-curricular student club access to facilities and provide supervision, but an employee is prohibited from participating, otherwise it would be considered supporting religion. I think the key here is in B2, right above 3, where it's mentioning religion.
Yes.
It's saying for all intents and purposes, a district employee or the school or what have you cannot sponsor, participate, et cetera, in said non-curricular activity. I think the purpose of number 3 in calling out religion specifically is to demonstrate there must be a separation there, and that it's because there's legal grounding in that separation. I think it's calling it out specifically. So
Yeah, and I looked up, I was looking for a law, one of the items that might have another reason for just putting religion in there instead of the other ones that related to that 1981 Supreme Court decision. So anyway, I just know this was CSBA language, and I know sometimes I disagree with CSBA on different items just based on the way they write them, because it's done by a staff member, and they look up stuff, and they tried to write it the best they could, I know. And so I just thought, well, it was interesting that they called out just religion for these types of meetings for that purpose, but I'm willing to listen to other viewpoints on it.
I was wondering if it would include both. Would you be comfortable adding employees of the school district shall be present at religious or other non-curriculum student-related? That way, the religion is still in there as required, but it doesn't just single out religion, it also includes other groups. Would that?
Yeah, if we put religious and non-curriculum related student groups, I think it pretty much puts it in there, yeah. So as long as it's and not or, because or doesn't say that's important. It states it already in other places, but I'll be okay with that. I think it's fair, and I see why they're calling out religion, because they want to ensure that, but that it's not a conflict in the school district, and I totally get that. But okay. If that's okay with the board, if we could just put the and non-curriculum related student.
I'm just thinking in terms of what would that entail? Would that entail, so like talent shows, rallies?
It's only associated student body organizations. So they're kind of like clubs. We used to call them clubs, but they're called organizations and equal access.
Okay.
They took off the word club at some point. You see in the first paragraph, they took off student groups or clubs.
Okay, perfect.
And I really like the additions in the first paragraph. I think it's great. So if that's okay, if that's okay with you all, then okay, we'll leave the religious and then and just add those 3 words, or 4 words, non-curriculum related student.
Can I give an example that might be a counterexample, just real quick, that might happen? Indoor soccer. If I create an indoor soccer club, that would be would that be a non-curricular club? And now you're saying that the teacher that's there can't participate with the students in playing indoor soccer. If you add in that other area, that means they can't do that. Is that what I'm getting at?
That's what's
right?
being
And I think
being
this is
proposed.
specifically for the example I'm going to give is the teacher can't lead the students in prayer. I'm going to give you an example.
Right.
Right? That would be what this is. But an intramural sport, right? That's non-curricular, a non-club that would meet after school. But then the teacher can't, then, they need one more player. They can't play because they can't do indoor soccer or something, something outside the box. So
Paints it in here again.
I'm kind of wanting to know if we can get this specifically, ask this specific piece with legal counsel and give us more information on what to do about that and bring it back.
That's what we did.
Yes, you did do that.
We just brought that back, we brought this back from Saturday for this specific one. We could go back to legal counsel and bring it back the next board meeting if you'd like.
Well, it doesn't sound like they were clear on this particular number 3 for everyone. Or we can, or it's up to you, or we can just vote on it. I don't know.
We have a couple other people, so I want to get to them first before we start. I noted down what one possibility, but Dr. West, did you have an additional comment? Okay. Trustee Irvin?
Yes, I was on the same lines with Trustee Maestas. Because that's the, when you added that "and" there to that opened up, I'm not gonna say a can of worms for lack of a better term, but it was like, oh, wait a minute, if you, like you said, you have a volleyball club or, any type of club, sports club, and now it's saying, which is non-curriculum, and like I said, a lot of time coaches interact with their athletes, whether they're the on the sports team or a sports club, that reads, if I'm reading it right correctly, that I couldn't participate. I couldn't engage in the activity with the students, and to me as a teacher, that would take away from that activity, so to speak, with my students. Again, we go back to relationships, and building those relationships. So that's how I read it.
Trustees, can I just clarify that the athletics-related clubs that we're referencing are co-curricular? Students do receive a grade. They are considered academic courses in that they're related to a curriculum. So they're not extra or non-curricular. They are considered co-curricular. So the volleyball club, the basketball club, the soccer club, those wouldn't fall
What about
under
the gaming club?
Yeah, because, you have the basketball team, you have the football team, you have the soccer team, but
Right,
a
yeah,
club will
those,
be
but,
something different, like,
right.
let's say.
If they did what do you
Soccer golf.
call Jai, the sport, field hockey. So that would, or lacrosse, that's what I'm looking for, lacrosse. That would be a co-curricular if they just did a club. Some students got together and they got some equipment and started going out and playing lacrosse.
No, it would be a equal access club. So
That's what
we're
what I'm alluding to, or we're talking about is those types of a club. You got the gaming club over there. I know I've seen the one at Davis, and they engage, and I know that advisor over there to them engages in the gaming process with those students. So that's how I'm reading it.
Trustee Mesa, did you still want to?
Just one little additional thing to that is that there's various reasons why a teacher and students wouldn't want to be part of the Associated Student Body Club. Like, they don't want to actually make it a formal club because of fundraising obligations or things like that, and they just want to have a space to meet, to play, Pokemon or something, right? So that's kind of what we're getting at.
That is the key distinction. If a student group, the rugby crew that goes out and plays touch rugby every day at lunch, they want to organize a student-initiated group, and a teacher wants to sponsor that, and they form a club through the ASB organization, that doesn't fall under the limited open forum rule. So they would be able to do that, but if said teacher or said student group wanted to form a group and be able to meet at school during lunch or after school under the limited open forum, that's where they would have equal access to the facilities under this legal guidance, but the teacher or the employee can't participate. They're there to monitor and supervise. So I think we're crossing over two different areas. One is an ASB established club or organization. The other is a non-ASB, but still providing students access to facilities which would require non-participation by an employee, particularly in a religious organization or religious meeting.
But this is specifically talking to the associated with ASB, right? So you're saying, so if, for example, a group of kids wanted to bring, I don't know, X speaker, and they brought them in, they could use their facilities, this scenario would apply. Look, Because I'm trying to understand what was the difference that you just mentioned there, because we were talking about ASB. So that means that during ASB, any teacher for any club can participate.
If we add the and non-curricular, any
As
of
it
those,
is.
they could not participate.
As it
If
is.
we add that.
So the first half of the BP is addressing associated student body organizations, and it speaks to what a club needs to do to be established as an ASB club. But there are other organizations that are non-ASB established clubs, which would potentially be a group of students that want to bring in a religious speaker, but they have a legal right to access the facilities, but in order to do so, they have to have an employee there to supervise that activity. It's not a club under the ASB, it's being enabled through the limited open forum. So there's the first half, and then there's the second half.
Okay, so that there I can kind of see where there's that kind of distinction, because then it could be assumed that it could be employee-led.
So according to this, none of these can be led by a teacher, because it says for the criteria for these have to be met, and it's on page C in the AR, and also it kind of did it on the board policy, but the C in AR is well stated. It says the meeting shall be voluntary and student initiated. There shall be no sponsorship of the meeting by the school or the staff. The school or staff shall not promote, lead, or participate in a meeting. The assignment of a teacher, administrator, or other school employee to a meeting for custodial purposes shall not constitute sponsorship of the meeting. So to me, that's saying that, and then you have to, they give the criteria, you have to put the name of it on, you have to have like they had a whole list, the name of the organization, a statement of the organization's purpose, objectives, activities. So the title, powers and duties of the officers, and the manner of their election. So it's basically a very organized group by students, run by students, and staff members are supposed to be there, but they can't participate in the meeting. So I understand that.
So AR 6145.5B,
Yes.
what you're referring to, it's under the heading of limited open forum, equal access, which states all those qualifications that
Okay.
you just listed. But if you
Okay.
scroll up to A,
Okay, good, thank you.
and the homepage, it's talking about associated student body organizations, which the English teacher that wants to run the chess club can participate if it's organized as an ASB club. And there are certain qualifications which are outlined in the AR that establish how you organize a club.
Okay.
But there are groups of students that may want to meet that aren't organized as an ASB club or organization. They would be able to do so under the limited open forum,
Right?
which must have these precautions in place where it may be religious oriented, and if so, you can't participate, or it could be other activities or groups that would be under that. But there's two distinctions there, and I think, again, we keep crossing over.
Right.
What about the teacher that wants to run the chess club? Would they not be able to play chess with the kids? No, because if they're organized under the ASB club
Right.
umbrella, they absolutely can.
Okay.
But there are other groups that may want to meet that they have to follow the limited open forum. There's two different ways to do that.
I know, and I remember this being very confusing when we did it the first time too, and it was really a long discussion about equal access versus associated student body organizations and how they function. And so, but we didn't call out religion at the time, and and that's where I'm trying to understand why as a teacher or a staff member has to be in a religious meeting, but doesn't have to be in the chess club meeting.
Because the chess club, if it's organized as an ASB club, it's a club. It's covered in the first half of the AR. If it's a chess club Maybe there isn't a chess club at a school, and they just want to bring in a grandmaster on a Wednesday after school to do a presentation, but it's not a club, that there has to be a staff member there supporting, or excuse me, not supporting, but supervising the event outlined under the limited open forum. So the two differences.
Okay.
I have a comment
all right.
from Vice President Brown, so I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you.
So I appreciate the difference between this organized meetings that's not an ASB type club. And so that helps me understand. So I'm thinking that there's probably things other than religion that fall in this category. For example, a particular political group on campus that wants to meet, but they're not an ASB club. They'd fall under the same guidelines as the religious group. Is that correct?
In theory, there could be the Young Republicans Club that's formed as a ASB club, student initiated, with a advisor. That would be different than the limited open forum situation. So in theory, they could talk politics in that ASB club for Young Republicans because it's formed under the ASB organization. Am I answering your question for the distinction between what may or may not be allowed?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out if there are types of discussions other than religion that would happen in these meetings that would move it into that category.
Any meeting brought forward under the limited open forum, the employee would be there as a monitor to supervise the room, the facility, to ensure that it's safe, but can't engage.
So the fact that religion is called out in this number 3 doesn't mean that that's the exclusive, that it's only religious groups. It's just saying that if it is a religious group, then this is how it applies. So back to number 3.
Again, just so, which, are we talking the BP or the AR? In which language?
This is in the BP.
Number 3.
Number 3.
I believe number 2 is stating basically the same thing, but number 3 is calling out religious because of the separation, and is just pointed it out explicitly.
So that's just protecting our district with the separation of church and state.
Well, I think it's also calling out that you can have a religious meeting under the limited open forum, provided there is an employee there to supervise, but they can't participate, again, to protect us from that separation.
That's where I'm confused. I just don't understand why that's the only kind of club or student group that has to have an employee in it. All the other ones, it just says non-school persons shall not direct, conduct, or control. I mean, on the same list of the reasons why.
Trustee
So
Marks?
I'm just, oh, sorry. So I apologize.
I was
jumped in
going to
there.
go to Trustee Mejia.
Oh, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion. I think we should motion it, and then if it doesn't pass, then we revisit it. I think I would just like to make a motion to because we have discussed it already several times. So I would like to make a motion to approve the VP, and then if it doesn't go, then we revisit it at another board meeting.
Okay, so I've had a motion to approve, and you're asking to approve as is without any modifications?
As is.
Okay.
With no modifications, as is.
Okay, so at this point, what will happen is that I'll ask for a second. If there's no second, then we can talk about what's the next steps. If it does and it passes or it fails, as is, okay? So do I hear a second?
I would like to second it for the protection of the district and the separation of church and state.
Okay, I have a second. Now I will be doing roll call.
Yes.
Yes. So give me a second while I. Sorry. Trustee Irvin. Trustee Maestas.
Aye.
Trustee Marks.
Nay.
Trustee Mejia.
Aye.
Trustee Wes.
Aye.
Vice President Brown.
Aye.
President Lopez. Aye. Motion passes 6 to 1.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share that.
And so this takes us to B6, Report on Local Performance Indicators. Mr. Hurst. Thank you, Dr. Nelson.
His last board meeting.
Yes.
Best wishes.
Have a pleasant time.
Good evening, Board President Lopez, members of the board, Dr. Naguchi, Cabinet, and the public at large. Again, my name is Steve Hurst, Director of State and Federal. Purposes tonight is to provide the Board of Education with the required annual update of the local performance indicators as will be reported on the California School Dashboard. And the local indicators measures district progress towards LCF or local control funding formula priorities that are not reported in the LCAP. Alignment, obviously we're looking at everything that has to do with our MCS goals, so it does align to all areas of the Minnesota City Schools strategic goals. So the State Board of Education approves standards for the local indicators that support local educational agencies or LEAs in measuring and reporting their progress in the appropriate priority area. For each local indicator, the approved standards includes measuring progress on a local indicator based on locally available information, reporting the results to the governing board at a regular scheduled meeting of the governing board, to have educational partners and public reporting through the California School Dashboard. For each applicable indicator, we must assign one of 3 performance levels. We have to either meet or met, not met, or not met for 2 or more years. The local indicators include the basic services and conditions, which is state priority number 1, implementation of state academic standards, parent engagement, school climate, and access to a broad course of study. Again, there are 8 priorities, of which these are ones that are not specifically measured in LCAP and have to be reported out separately, which is what we will do tonight. So the basic services and conditions relates to state priority number 1. It addresses the appropriateness of our teacher assignments, access to curriculum aligned instructional standards, and facilities that are safe, clean, and functional. The majority of this information is already collected through the School Accountability Report Card or the SARC. For this particular indicator, Modesto City Schools met this for the current year. The implementation of state academic standards relates to state priority number 2. School districts use what is a state-supplied rubric to gauge their success in implementing the curriculum that is aligned to the adopted standards in all content areas. And in the report that accompanies this, you would see that rubric as well as the results of that. Based on completing that rubric and the measurements that we have, Modesto City Schools again met this indicator. For parent involvement, this is state priority number 3. The school districts must provide a narrative summary of their progress towards seeking input from parents and guardians in school and district decision-making and promoting parental participation in programs. Based on the information and how it's collected, in this case, we administered an online survey this year, had over 1,800 participants in that survey. And based on what that survey indicated, Modesto City Schools has met the indicator, and that information was also included in development of the LCAP. School climate is state priority number 6. Schools must provide a narrative summary again of the local administration and analysis of a climate survey that captures a valid measure of student perceptions of school safety and connectedness. This must be done in at least one grade in each grade span. The grade spans would be K-5, 6-8, and 9-12. Modesto City Schools administered a survey this year to all of our students in grades 3 through 12. This information, again, was part of our LCAP development and review. And based on the results of that survey, Modesto City Schools met this requirement. Access to a broad course of study relates to state priority number 7. School districts must annually measure their progress in the extent to which students have access to and are enrolled in a broad course of study that includes the adopted courses of study specified in California Education Code for grades 1 through 6 and for grades 7 through 12, including programs and service developed and provided to unduplicated students and individuals with exceptional needs. When you look at our current LCAP, we have a variety of supports. When you think of dual language program, the IB program, AP, the Language Institute, the remediation, and again, Modesto City Schools did meet the indicator as outlined in the performance bands. As you can see on this slide, for the 5 areas that we do have to report to the dashboard, Modesto City Schools did meet all of the standards that need to be reported. So our next steps that will happen at this point in time is all of these results will be reported in October on the California dashboard as part of our submission and reporting requirements that are required by the state. And at that time, the entire report narrative that you have is also uploaded as part of that submission. And at this time, if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to try and answer them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hurt. I'm sorry, Doctor. Mr.
My
Hurst.
brother, sorry.
So we're gonna go out to the public first. Is there any comments on this? Debbie, welcome.
Thank you. Debbie Martinez, Suero La Raza Parents Union. My questions are, and the LCAP, Cindy, you know, I've been from the beginning, you and Pam Abels, when I was on a Saturday learning this stuff. I can breathe it, read it, quote it, and now I'm going to get ready to teach it to the parents at the Salvation Army Interlock by way of California Legal Rule Associations. I'd love to see that here in this district. My question is, when the LCAP was designed, it was designed for the parents, not by way of survey. And so right here, it says parent engagement under priority 3, that it was performed and you guys gathered your information by survey. Well, it was designed for in-person so that parents can, like someone just read, make some decisions, be part of, to be empowered and engaged. I don't see empowerment here. Parents do not feel empowered here in this district. So I would like to see less by way of community, less surveys, and more in-person. Series, little tiny district. I can bring in 60 families, no problem for them. Open the doors here. Ask Nath over at Johansson. I brought in 300 for a science fair one day. I even called Nan. You need to report this. It's possible here if you guys open the doors for us. So we'd like to see more in-person and less surveys. Surveys are what? How do you get empowerment from the parents on a survey? How do you get them to make decisions on a survey? It's just fabricated. Power of the pen is what I call it. So I'd like to see more engagement with parents in person and eliminate that. Now, the second one is, where can I get data and what year was this given that you met for the school accountability report card? Because we found the last administration in violation of that one. So I'd like to know what year you guys took that data from, where it says right here that you met the school accountability report card. I'd like to get that data. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Any other comments from our public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Trustee Irvin, did I see you?
Yeah.
Did
Did you drop me?
Someone dropped you, but go ahead, take it away.
I just had two things, and actually one of them had to I was going to ask what Ms. Martinez had alluded to. Back when the LCAP first came out, I was with Aspire Public Schools, and one of my job as the regional director from Sacramento down to Modesto was to help implement the LCAP process. And I know during that process, we had the parents at each of our schools participate in how we outlined each of the school climate priorities, and we engaged in the process in groups with groups of parents at each of our schools in the Aspire Central region. So I don't know if that's happening here in our district as well, because we did a survey too, but we also did the parent engagement process where we took them through the process of looking at goals and objectives and coming up with those goals and objectives in concert with parents and students, because students were a part of that as well at our high schools. And then the second thing I wanted to ask on the LCAP, when it lists the current LCAP supports, is AVID one of the LCAP supports?
AVID is in the LCAP also, yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it here, so I just wanted to.
I didn't call it specifically out, I'm sorry.
Okay. But yeah, like I said, when I first was with Aspire, it sent me to all these trainings and stuff to be able to, at the state, to be able to implement the LCAP in our region. And I know that was one of the big things that they were big on is parent engagement, family engagement. And like I said, we used to hold those in the evenings to go over each of and then in the midterm, then we go back and see what's working, what's not working, do we need to change course and, do things like that. So I just wanted to bring that because I had the same question.
Perfect. Trustee Marks?
This was great. Reading through the LCAP again and just pulling out things and learning more about kind of where we are right now. So I had one question. So on this, and then I just had some things I wanted to pull out that were really positive results in the LCAP that I thought were really helpful too. But it said,
Oh, Cindy,
Are we
that's
on the-
actually the next item.
Oh,
We're
I'm
just on the
sorry.
This is the local
indicators, so
indicators
we're
right
not
now.
on the LCAP
okay,
yet.
all right, thank you. Because when I read, I thought, wait, are we on the LCAP? Because that's what I thought. Okay,
Give it a minute.
thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, there it is.
Maestas?
Can you just quickly tell us how we can get to the dashboard to see these? 'Cause this looks like a screenshot. Can you just tell us really quickly how to get to the dashboard?
Actually, we create that to mirror the dashboard because on the dashboard, it's more the narratives that's put in there. But if you go to the California dashboard, there is a piece there for local indicators. And those are reported every year for the prior year. So this would be, what I'm reporting is what we will report on our October dashboard for the 21-22 school year.
21-22.
Currently on the dashboard would be the 2021. Sorry.
So this information won't actually be on the dashboard until October, November, when it gets reported?
Correct. That'll be our next step, is to report it. Each year, it's a lagging indicator, essentially.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Herbst, and is this the dashboard is what he was mentioning? You asked them to go outside of our website to look it up.
Currently, the local indicators is not linked in our dashboard that I'm aware of. However, I do know that we have links to the California dashboard related to the academic performance, and so that would be the same link, but I would have to double check that specifically.
I'll just make a recommendation if it's not, or if it's in there, let's have that somewhere in the front for our parents to engage. I know we're going to talk about LCAP, but I think what we mentioned before is we know that we've been doing a lot of great work around parent engagement. We need to increase it, and we need to be more transformational about it. I think, as we mentioned before, it takes a lot of process for even individuals our staff to understand the LCAP and the process and how to be effective about it. For our parents that have other priorities, it's going to be it's going to be vital that we take the time and we take the effort to really get them to understand, so that they can help us in turn to really see what they envision for their students, right? And how we can make that happen collaboratively. The local
Mine
indicators,
was my question was on the one with the
indicators.
local indicators.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay, so we'll
Yeah.
go back to Trustee Marks.
Sorry, but I agree with you, and I did want to say that we want to focus on how we can engage the community more, the parents, into that discussion, so that they can help their students. But I said, I feel like we need to focus a lot more effort into the African-American community, and especially the parents, so that they can give input on that for the decision-making. And so I just feel like it's a small percentage in our district, but I feel like there's such a great opportunity there for us to connect with those parents and ensure that we're working with our students well. And then the other one was, I noticed about the, 75% of the students felt welcome when they came to school. That was really cool. But the one that I noticed that I know we put that this is an area of growth for the district was the 40% of students feel bullying is a problem. Now, it didn't say that they felt bullied, but they felt like it was a problem. So I'm hoping we can find out more about why they would put that on a survey, and what the question, how we can help them, help just the school climate, ensure that they feel safe there. They don't feel like bullying is a problem. So, but I liked, some of the other ones were that students, 64% felt connected to the school. So that was helpful too. So those are just the ones I wanted to say about those. So I thought that was important work that we're doing in our schools.
Thank you very much, Trustee Marks. I'm seeing no more lights. Well, if not, this was a report only, so we'll moving on to B7. Thank you, Mr. Hurst, but he's staying with us because the next item is approval of the local control and accountability plan, LCAP. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Again, tonight we're here for approval of the 22-23 Local Control and Accountability Plan, or LCAP. And again, the LCAP is a 3-year plan that describes the goals, actions, services, and expenditures to support positive student outcomes that address state and local priorities. The state has established 8 priorities, of which the outcome of the local indicators must be presented at this board meeting, as we just did, in conjunction with the adoption of the LCAP. The LCAP is aligned to our 5 MCS strategic goals and was presented to the board at a public hearing on June 6, 2022. The LCAP was developed through a collaborative process and involvement from a variety of stakeholders. The LCAP advisory and the DLAC committees have reviewed the plan and provided input. Additionally, the plan has been reviewed by the Stanislaus County Office of Education for compliance, and community input from the public hearing was reviewed and included in the final draft. The LCAP plan addresses all 5 of our strategic goals and has the actions and services identified to help meet those goals. Some of the highlights is, again, the support for STEAM or STEM, increasing the MTSS focus on equity, professional development opportunities for all staff, parent ambassadors to increase our parent engagement, maintaining safe schools, maintaining our school facilities, and being fiscally and operationally sound. The LCAP plan also has proposed expenditures related to these actions and services, and correlates with the budget adoption that is scheduled to be presented next at this meeting. At this time, we are asking and requesting the board to approve the 22-23 LCAP as presented.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hurst. And so I'll take it out to the public. Is there any comments on the LCAP?
Parent engagement under the LCAP. Equality, better quality of service. A lot of money on the table that we're going to approve. And here's my first example of better quality of service. Today we talked about programs for male students of color. What happened to female? Equality, equal. You can only give one, but you didn't give the other one. Half. the glass is only half filled. So if we're going to pass money, make sure that we fill it all the way across the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other person from the public? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for any questions or comments. I have Trustee Marks.
Just a few noticeable points. One, I wanted to say that our parent engagement was really amazing. Our goal was 10%, and it was up 27%. And our engaging with our social media, our goal was 10%, and it was 31%. And then we have 30 parent ambassadors, so that was really cool. So we put funding into that. And our computer science programs, we have our 7 high schools have the computer science courses now. I know we're working on elementary and junior high, and then elementary. And then I just had, let's see, I like that we have increased in our sports. We went from 75 to 375. So I think with tonight, when we were talked about the funding for the tracks, and then for the future, maybe a stadium or whatever we have for the future, I'm glad that our students are taking advantage of the sports. And I just had one concern about our chronically absent students, that it went from 17%, and then this last year it was 39%, which is a concern. But I was wondering if we had any way to do home visits, because I know that's helped students in the past when we've had chronically absent, or is this?
Really, what you're seeing there, unfortunately, is the effects of the pandemic.
Okay.
We are not the only district. I mean,
I
I just
know.
hate to say that. I mean, it is a statewide problem that more students have been absent, and we are doing our best to engage. I actually think the things we've done minimize some of that, but it's still an opportunity area. There's no way we can't say it's not.
Yes, and I know it was just this last year, so that's where I was concerned. I could see 2020 and 2021, but 21 and 22, I know we're still trying to get them back. So I was just hoping we could still have some way that parents could come in and staff can go visit them at some point, because I know that has really helped. I know we have a attendance liaison. I don't know if they're doing that, but that was just a thought, because I remember that being very helpful. And I thought this was good. The reader-friendly version, I read through that. That was really interesting. There's a few things I thought, wow, you said that the staff looked at it, or that you had a committee look at it. I know there's a couple things where it said DFS. I thought if I was a parent, I wouldn't know what DFS was. I might know what EL stood for, but I didn't know what DFS was. And it's just on the elementary district will improve EL's DFS to 60 points below standard. And so I thought as a parent, I wouldn't know what that meant if it's a reader-friendly one, but that's the only comment I had.
So Trustee Marks, just as folks tune in and look at this meeting, I want to just bring some context to what you just said, because it's really important. When we took a look at the COVID-related absences, it's easy to forget that we transitioned to in-person instruction this year. Last year, they could be sick and they could be counted as attendance because they were sitting on their couch, right? We had over 100,000 COVID-related absences, and that's not counting regular absences. So we're going to see that come back when we come back in September to be able to show student outcomes, which I'm still, from what I'm seeing, very optimistic and very proud of those student outcomes. But we still have another year to slog through this. But the reality is we still got hit with 2 pretty high surges. So
and
hopefully
especially in
this next
January,
year, hopefully, and in end of August, beginning September. That one was really big. So hopefully as we transition out, I think the pandemic's going to take a couple more years to finally get rid of that. But certainly this is the baseline, and we continue to move that dial on.
You're right. Thank you for reminding me of that. Those surges this year.
Hard to remember.
I know. I just have 2020 as such a big deal because we weren't in session at all. And then they sent us back, moved the numbers back to 18, 19, which I thought was helpful. So it does make it a more dramatic look. Though I'm glad our students are coming back, and those were surges, and we all had people missing work and, a lot of hard things this last year. So thank you for correcting me and reminding me. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for answering questions. So if I don't see any more comments or questions, can I get a motion to approve the local control and accountability plan? Moved by Trustee Maesta, seconded by Trustee Irvin.
Second.
All those in favor, sorry, my bad. We'll take a roll call vote. Trustee Irvin,
Aye.
Trustee Maestas,
Aye.
Trustee Marks,
Aye.
Trustee Mejia,
Aye.
Trustee Wes,
Aye.
Vice President Brown.
Aye.
President Lopez, aye. Motion passes unanimously. And this takes us to B8, which is the approval of certification for the 2022-2023 budget for all funds and authorization for transit copies to local and state agencies. Mr. Surley.
Thank you, President Lopez. Our proposed budget was presented to the board and the public on June 6th. And it is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the 22-23 annual budget. There aren't any changes to the numbers that you saw 2 weeks ago. However, there's many more documents. There's 135 pages, as we're required to, as part of the certification, to have you review all of the schedules, all the formal schedules and documents. So that is the only change from 2 weeks ago. The numbers have not changed. The legislature has passed their version of the state budget, and they are now currently in private negotiations, because we haven't heard anything about negotiations with the governor on what the final state budget will look like. Once that's known, then we will revise our estimates based on the adopted state budget. So at the moment, we respectfully recommend that the Board of Education approve the 22-23 budget for all funds.
Thank you very much. Do I have any comments from the public? Seeing none, do we have any comments from the board? Trustee Marks.
I didn't know where to put this, but, so I just want us to think about this for the fall. I ran into someone at the Juneteenth, and it was a coach from our school district, and they were asking me about the Johansson High School, and because the stadium there is the largest stadium in the district, it has the largest parking lot in the district, so it would be a perfect location to host a track meet, a regional track meet. And right now it's been at MJC, and so it would be awesome if we could do that. I know it would promote our schools, and I would also like to see us maybe look at paving that parking lot so that it's just a better facility. It's hard in the wintertime when it's muddy, and it's really tough when it gets all dusty. But just to think about that for our budget for this coming year. I know maybe if we get money back, if we get the bond passed and some things, then we'll be able to put that money back in. But that was just something I wanted to see if we could do that in the future and just start thinking about it and talking about it, because I think it would be really helpful. Right now, Johansson has the Olympic-sized pool that is, we've hosted a lot of events there as well because it's an Olympic-sized pool. And I'm amazed at that board. Back in the 90s, I wasn't here then when they built that school. They got a lot of flack for how big it was and how nice it looked, but they put in a pool and a stadium, and we weren't able to do that in the 2000s when we built Enoch's and Grigori. So I appreciate the forethought of that board, but now it'd be nice to finish it off and make it just a really premier setting.
We're going to come back in September to a special workshop around facilities, so we'll be able to get your feedback and input from all the board members on what the priorities are. So
Okay.
that will be the perfect time to be able to prioritize that.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice President Brown.
Yes, with regard to the budget, want to thank Tim and your team for all the effort that's gone into the massive project that the budget has become this year. And really appreciate all the forethought and insight that's gone into helping us effectively use the funds that are available to us. And appreciate that, and I would propose that we pass that budget.
Sounds good. We have a motion by Vice President Brown and a second by Trustee Wes for the approval of certification of the 2022-2023 budgets for all funds and authorization to transmit copies to local and state agencies. I will take a roll call vote at this moment. Trustee Urban,
Aye.
Trustee Maestas,
Aye.
Trustee Marks,
Aye.
Trustee Mejia,
Aye.
Trustee Wes,
Aye.
Vice President Brown,
Aye.
President Lopez, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And this takes us to our final item for the night, which is the report on the 2022-2024 district strategic goals. Superintendent
thank you.
Naguchi.
I recognize you guys are all getting a little tired, getting a little punchy after a long day at work and then a pretty long board meeting, but we've gotten a lot of really good work done today. I'm going to kind of truncate this presentation so I don't go through each line by line by line on these goals, because the majority of the goals that we've had for the last 4 years really are being brought forward to the next 2 years. And the reason why we're doing a 2-year, what I'm going to be asking for approval for 2 years, is because at the end of 2 years, we're going to start a new LCAP, and I want to be able to have a new 4-year set of goals with the 4-year plan for LCAP, and it's going to come together. So really, we're not looking for a lot of changes, but the changes that I am recommending for approval tonight are some pretty substantive changes, and it really speaks to your vision and the feedback that you've provided me either through my evaluation process or what we've done in the district around equity in this last 4 years. So I want to bring to your attention a couple documents. So you have this document in front of you. It's the instructional core. This instructional core document, we are going to come back in August and talk to you about and share with you really how we're taking our academics and we're laser focusing on what we're calling the instructional core. There's a lot of work to be done around this, but all of our work in TK all the way up through 12 will be around instructionally around this core. And that, I'm going to read the vision statement. I'm not going to do a lot of reading to you, but I am going to read the vision statement on the instructional core. The vision for Modesto City Schools instructional core is that every student deserves a guaranteed instructional program, not by chance, but by design, including board-adopted curriculum, research-based best practices, and authentic relationships and assessment that guides the instruction. You're going to see throughout the strategic goals 1 and 2, I'm going to reference the instructional core, and that's what we're talking about when I do that. I recognize I'm going to do a special workshop on this, so we're going to put a pin in this until August or September. So there's 2 documents that you have. You have the strategic goals, which are really the ones that we're going to sunset tonight, and the new ones, which are 22 to 24. And I'm going to go through each of the 5 goals and just highlight a few things. It shouldn't take any more than 5 minutes, but I'd be prepared to answer any questions that you might have. Goal number 1, this is really our academic achievement and equitable access for all. We really are laser focusing again on the instructional core. We also have included the California State Dashboard, so we're aligning to what the state is requiring us to be accountable to. And then last one is inclusionary practices. I highlighted those 3 areas because those are really the fundamental changes in this goal. Everything else is the same, it's just being brought up from the last 4. Goal number 2, it really focuses on professional development. And you know, the last 4 years, this district, one of its hallmark is investing in its people. And so with this professional development, again, focusing it on the instructional core, and it actually then defines the instructional core, board adopted curriculum, engaging students around language and literacy, and supporting our PLCs. Also, I've heard quite a bit in the last 4 years, and again, many stakeholders took a look at this document, but really looking at how do we go about increasing the capacity of the folks that we have within our organization to potential advancement within the organization. So how do I build my skill so we don't look out for employees, but rather we build from within. Number 2.3, we've added the seal of biliteracy and the seal of civic engagement, both of which have come through in the last 4 years. 2.4, educational technology. With the pandemic, there was a huge rise to educational technology. We really want to capitalize on what our teachers have learned, and so we want to get it in our goals to ensure there's continued professional development. And then lastly, but very importantly, embedding equity and access in the school culture. What does that look like for the teacher? What does that look like for the principal? What does that look like for our students? And so really continuing professional development in that area. And that includes equitable grading practices, our site equity teams, and really using data and disaggregating it out like you saw today. It should be part of all of our process as we do that. Goal number 3, we've added our equity task force. So you saw the recommendations today. We reported on one of those recommendations for the next 2 years. I want to give my commitment to continuing to go back to those recommendations and see where we're at as we grow through that. So by having it on here, we'll continue that information to you and the community. Continuing with customer service for our community and our families and our students. And then 3.6, this is a new one. Definitely have heard this from Trustee or Vice President Brown and others, but really increasing and engaging student voice and having it an active part of decision making. Goal number 4, much the same. This is the fiscally and operationally sound. We've added the sustainability initiatives, health and safety, and ensuring that we have engaging learning environments, and that is really spearheaded from the elementary bond and hopefully a high school bond, where we're really looking at our environments to determine how best to engage our youth. Our youth of today is very different than the youth of 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And then lastly, really looking at short and long-term strategies for increasing enrollment. The goal before was looking at how to mitigate declining enrollment. We're looking at it through a different lens. We found to be a little more successful and looking at strategies for increasing enrollment. You know, what are we doing with MVA and our programs and working with feeder schools. And then lastly, but certainly not least, that's our recruit and hiring is really our HR goal with an emphasis of increasing diversity. And I think that you've seen that over the last 2 years, particularly this year. There has been a significant increase in the diversity that we have hired in our managers and our teacher workforce. But we added an additional goal in this area, and that is really looking at the efficiency from the time that we identify we need a position, let's say it's a yard duty or a teacher, and the time that it takes for them to have their first day at the job. We know that there's work to be done there, and by calling it out in the district goals, because this is something I'm laser focused on and we report out on, I know that this will be work that we need to work and really capitalize on technology. I know that there's some work there. So with that, I'm open to any questions that you have. I know I'll turn it back over to President Lopez as he goes out to the community. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have on our 2-year goal plan, which is kind of short, but there's a purpose there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Naguchi. I'll take it out to public. Is there any questions or comments?
Debbie Martinez, community. These are good goals, Dr. Naguchi. I come 25 years of customer service management. I think you and I need to reestablish our relationship if we want to get some good customer service here. I don't know where it derailed. I've been at this governing board. I said I want to work with you. Before you, during you, and after you, I'm going to still be here. So what does high quality professional development, what does that look like connected to customer service for the families? Because that's where our gap is. I come 25 years management. I trained in management. I know what customer service is supposed to be like, especially in a public setting. That's why I'm so tyrant, because there's a lot of money. Modesto B says that this parent, she wants residential, she wants to use taxpayers' money. No, it's our money. It's community money, your money, children's money, people's money. Let's tie it together. When you talk about highly quality professional development, customer service, let's bring it full circle. Because if your staff, your administration, and even you cannot take a person like me that's so strong-willed, how are you treating the parents that are unknowledgeable, that don't even know their rights, that are trying to come forward for quality of service? That's a gap we need to fix. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from our board members? I see Vice President Brown. Oh. Okay, seeing no comments. Oh, I see Trustee Marks.
I think the goals are great to aspire to, and I know you've done well meeting the goals in the past, and so I look forward to seeing what you're, just watching how this is going to play out, and I know you'll do a great job because you have a good track record.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? It's great goals, and we're all here to support and making sure that these are achieved. And I know that having the destination district have qualified individuals and a promising community, we can achieve this and a lot more. So I appreciate you for the report. And then
Actually, it's approval. We're
What's
going
approved?
to have these approved.
Yes, sorry,
Oh, it's okay.
And I'll make the motion if that's all right.
it's not on the. It says report.
It's not on the agenda as an approval. All right, it'll come back in consent at the next board meeting.
Okay.
I approve.
Okay,
We'll bring it back
That works.
to our next board meeting, which will be on July 25th. Thank you, everyone that was here and on home or watching us. Thank you for assisting. And do I hear a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting? Moved by Trustee Maestas, seconded by Trustee Irvin. I have to take a roll call on this. So Trustee Irvin,
I don't think you have to.
Trustee Maestas,
Aye.
Trustee Marks,
Aye.
Trustee Mejia,
Aye.
Trustee West,
Aye.
Vice President Brown.
I oppose. Let's stay a little longer. Aye.
And President Lopez, aye. Meeting adjourned. Have